Okay, we should be streaming, and we are being recorded. And we have 4 audience members on Zoom.
Okay, we're just waiting on Councilmember Steele.
Okay, we should be streaming, and we are being recorded.
All right, I am going to get rolling. Welcome everyone to the Tri-City Council Finance meeting. It is 6:05, and I would ask everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And I'll give the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, under God, for justice for all.
There's a
Okay.
slight variation on the pledge, but it was.
I know, sorry about that. My son was calling me upstairs. I apologize. We're going to do a quick roll call. Councilmember Gully.
He's muted.
Jim, I think you're muted. Jim? Okay. Councilmember Gully.
Get it? I'm here.
Okay, very good.
Councilmember. Even my
No
computer
problem.
doesn't like me today.
Councilmember Ash McPherson.
Her lips said here, but we didn't hear her.
Present, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Steele.
Present.
Councilmember Cummings.
Present.
Councilmember Zaluski.
Here.
Councilmember McDermott.
Here.
And Council President Mantello is here. Thank you all for joining us. Approval of the minutes. I would like a motion to approve the minutes
Make
of
a
the
motion
last
to approve the
meeting.
minutes.
Councilmember Zaluski motions. Do we have a second?
Second,
Second, Councilmember Ash McPherson. Discussion?
I have one question. Who
Yes.
is Stephen Barker?
Troy PD.
Hey,
Ah.
Kim, I'm a captain with the police department.
I couldn't, okay, thank you. Now I
If you
know
saw
who
my
it
face,
is.
if you saw my face, you'd know who it is.
Yeah, I just saw the name and I was like, who is that? Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for joining us, Captain Barker. Okay, further discussion? All in favor on the minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the minutes carry 7-0. Presentation of the agenda. We have a number of ordinances, a couple of budget transfers. We do also have a very, I think, probably a good discussion ahead of us with the Spectrum settlement, who also was known as Charter previously. And so we'll be talking about that. And then we have a couple of resolutions. We do have a couple of folks who are joining us, I believe, on the public forum. Mara, has anyone joined us for the public forum?
There was no one who signed up for the finance meeting public forum. We do have one person for the regular meeting later.
Okay. I do believe, has Terrence joined us yet?
No, he has not logged in.
Okay, when he logs in, let me know. Just so folks are aware, Sean Davis's father and I spoke a couple times today, and he had wanted to join us for the finance this evening. When he joins, Mara, just give me a heads up and we can certainly take a time, well, pause and allow Terrence to speak. Okay. Moving along, local laws, we have none. And ordinance 71, ordinance amending the 2020 general fund budget to appropriate additional funding from the New York State Governor's Traffic Safety Committee for pedestrian, bicyclist, education, and enforcement. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration, do I have a motion?
Make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Ash McPherson. On the discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, ordinance 71 carries 7-0. I would like folks to know that our corporation counsel, Rick Morrissey, has also joined us. Thank you for joining, Rick. And the mayor is also with us. And Andy Petrosky, who is our deputy comptroller, is with us. So we'll move along to ordinance 72, ordinance amending the 2020 general fund budget to appropriate additional funding from the New York State Governor's Traffic Safety Committee for the Child Passenger Safety Program. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration, do I have a motion?
Make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, we have a tie. We're going to give it to Councilmember Ash McPherson. Discussion.
Council President,
Yes, Councilmember Ash McPherson.
just so, and I didn't say it on the other one, I didn't know if Captain Barker was going to talk on this at all. Both of these are grants that we're getting from the governor.
The Governor's Traffic Safety Committee.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
No problem. Captain Barker, would you like to chime in?
No, other than, that's typically out of our Community Police and Traffic Division. That's a fairly routine grant that we continue to utilize, especially some of the safety measures on Hoosick Street. I know a lot of the traffic guys rely on that pretty heavily. So that's all we have on that.
Perfect.
Perfect, thank you. And I did notice on the letters, they were addressed to,
Yeah.
Salvatore Carello, who we know as Sam Carello, who retired this week, and a good friend of ours also, Mark Millington. So a shout out to the two of them, and certainly a lot of institutional knowledge we've lost, and but we want to wish them all the best. So further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, ordinance 72 carries 7-0. Ordinance 73, ordinance amending the 2020 general budget to appropriate additional funding from the New York State Governor's Traffic Safety Committee for Police Traffic Services, due Council President Mantello at the request of the administration. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Ash McPherson. Discussion. This is another Governor's Traffic Safety Committee grant. I apologize, I have to turn something off.
This one's almost 20,000.
I guess.
They
Council
put me in
President-
the basement with the dehumidifier. It's going off. Okay,
President.
sorry about that. We have a motion. We have a second. Further discussion?
Council President.
Yes, Councilmember Cummings.
So it looks like this is mostly what's called regular PTS enforcement, which would be police traffic services. So this is just, is this for overtime, or does this subsidize our sort of existing police time?
Captain Barker or Andy?
The Captain Barker wants to, the Schedule A, it's the grants for $19,900, of which $19,500 is for overtime and $400 is for training.
That's
Okay.
correct. Those monies are additional enforcement that they do on top of their typical responding to traffic crashes and just normal traffic enforcement. And
So it adds-
it's typically targeted enforcement. They, like the New York State Speed Week or Buckle Up New York, or those traffic safety weeks where they focus on something different every day, is typically where those monies go.
Perfect. Thank you, Captain Barker. Councilmember Cummings, any other questions?
Nope.
Okay, further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, ordinance 73 carries 7-0. Ordinance 74, ordinance transferring funds within the 2020 general fund budget. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration, do I have a motion?
Make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski, do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Ash McPherson, and I'll let Andy talk about one of the things I raised was you'll see the third transfer there, the contingency 50K out of the bond and note, or for the bond and note from contingency. Andy, if you could just talk about that.
Yeah, so obviously it's another transfer for $50,000. I think first, while this is paid out of the Corporation Counsel's office, it's services that we use in my office. It's not just for legal services. It's for bond counsel. It is also for the city's financial advisor. They are both paid out of this account. We have seen this year, there's been an uptick in usage of them. Before the meeting, I had jotted down, there's 8, just off the top of my head, 8 items that they've specifically worked on this year for us. In a normal year, it's anywhere from 3 to 4. Just to kind of go through it, we have our regular February issuance and our regular July issuance. That was status quo for this year. We had the State Street Garage bond resolution and a separate band issuance for that. We had the serial bond issuance for the arbitration award for the UFA. Bond counsel specifically did work at the beginning of COVID around the MAC debt and research about that. At the July finance meeting and the August council meeting, there was the bond resolution. There's an amending bond resolution for the CSO project with EFC. Paul Reichel at Bond Shannon King spent a tremendous amount of time working on that. There's the turnout gear that was purchased on an installment agreement that involved bond counsel for. And with all that said, we have used Bond Shannon King and fiscal advisors continuously throughout the COVID pandemic for the financial circumstances around it to get their input and advice specifically around the revenue anticipation note and moving forward. So, I mean, those are just 8 examples of things that we've had to use them for this year. And in a normal year, it would have really just been the February issuance, the July issuance, and then some other things as the year goes on. It's a very, very specific type of law when it comes to Bond Shannon King's side of it. It is as specific gets, and that is, I will note that in the next ordinance that comes up as to how specific finance law can be. And when it comes to the fiscal advisors, they've done a lot of work with me with cash flow analysis and just helping us get through the pandemic.
Thank you, Andy. Additionally, Andy, I did see that 27K of consulting services are going to traffic signals. Do you know what's going on with that? Does that have to do with Campbell Ave, or is it just citywide?
It's just citywide. They requested more money for the line. Looks like it was under budgeted for 2020. I say this while I will acknowledge that number 3 on the list takes it from contingency. We're really making an effort to find as much savings in other lines to fund, to appropriate to other accounts as they're needed, just to balance spending as we go.
Okay. Did other council members have any questions? Discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right, ordinance 74 carries 7-0. Ordinance 75, ordinance transferring funds within the 2020 general fund budget. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration, this is a budget transfer for Exxon Enterprises in the amount of $119,717.05. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Ash McPherson and Captain Barker. I can pass it along to you if you'd like to talk about this at all, but certainly many of us have been working very hard, the prior council into this council for police body cams. I see it as a win-win for the community and for our police. I do know that the policy is being worked on, and hopefully those I's will be dotted, T's crossed, but this is the transfer of the funds to appropriate it, and later on you will see a resolution authorizing the mayor to sign an agreement with Exxon Enterprises. But saying that, did you want to talk about it, Captain Barker, and then we'll open it up to council members?
Yeah, so I'll defer to Andy on most of the financials of it, but we're certainly excited about it. It's been a long time coming, and we put a lot of time and effort into the project. We're excited everybody's kind of at the table together discussing it and finishing up. And hopefully we're in the home stretch here and we can finally put our hands on some devices and move the project forward.
Thank you, Captain Barker. And Andy, I don't know if you want to go into any of the finances of it, but.
Yeah, so I do want to know just what this ordinance is. The agreement with Axon, that's resolution, I believe 98, it's approximately $264,000 annually over 5 years. 2 years ago, if I recall correctly, there was a bond resolution approved by the then city council for $250,000 for the body cameras. In reviewing the agreement that's before you this evening and the financial proposal that came with it, there are certain pieces of that as I mentioned before, there are specific rules when it comes to bonding. You cannot use bond proceeds for anything other than capital equipment, things of that nature. There are the part of the agreement is an ongoing, essentially, and Captain Barker can correct me on this. It's essentially a licensing agreement to use it. It's an ongoing operating cost as part of the agreement, and then the residual balance is for actual equipment itself. The $119,000 that's on this ordinance is the first year non-capital, but they are operating costs. The bond proceeds cannot be used to pay for that in any way. It violates state finance law. So what we have to do is split it out, and that's what we've done here in conjunction, and this has been reviewed by bond counsel. $119,000 will be paid for out of the general fund, and the remaining balance will be paid for with the bond proceeds. Any unused bond proceeds will be paid off, and when the next time the bands are renewed themselves. So that's what this ordinance is for.
Okay, I'm going to open it up to council members. I know a couple may have questions, and Maura, if you could reach out, I apologize, folks, to Terrence. He's having a tough time getting in. Thank you. Council members? Yep, Council Member Cummings.
So on this issue in particular, I know we had presented last week, or last meeting, you had presented about our tight cash position. Can you tell us about when this payment actually has to be made? I know it's being authorized now, but it's for a whole year. Does it need to be paid out now versus in a couple months?
When the invoices come in from Axon, I'm not sure. It's speaking to the cash flow, it still stands exactly where it was a few weeks ago. Well, I can tell you that if I were to guess right now, that $550,000 is probably down to somewhere between $300,000 and $400,000 projected in the middle of December.
So it'd be great to not have another 119 leave the door right now.
Well, I mean, that's a matter of when we can pay it. That's a conversation, if this were to pass, that we could have with Axon regarding the timing of when the invoice is. I know
and in
that
particular, relating to that.
I know that Captain Barker could speak more to the lead time as to when the cameras would come in. I know it's a several week implementation or you order it, and then I believe it's 4 to 5 weeks for delivery, and then there's training on top of that. So how the invoicing works, I don't know.
Do you want to
Great.
talk about that, Captain
Can-
Barker?
we can make a-
Definitely. So if the project were to move forward with Axon specifically, it's kind of a two-part process. Some of it occurs simultaneously. Once that agreement is signed, we would order the product themselves, the hardware. That could take upwards of 4 to 5 weeks to arrive. At that point is when we would start being invoiced for the product, and payments would be due. Simultaneously, once that order is on the way, we would set up with a separate team, in this case Axon, which would then come on site to assist BIS throughout the process. Quinn's been a huge help, and he's been with whatever vendor we've been discussing. He's been at the table to discuss different impacts to our information infrastructure here, but also the training. Obviously, we're going to need some training at the administrator level, how we would properly administer this program, but then some user training as well for the officers that are going to be wearing these every day. And that's another 3 to 4 weeks out.
So if you go off that timeline itself, the first invoice in that come in, it would appear to be for the equipment, which would come out of the band proceeds that are sitting in a separate account, have nothing to do with the cash analysis I'm speaking to. So that would not impact it. It's the training, when those operating training like costs are invoiced to us and come in, that's when it would impact cash flow. And again, cash flow spikes back up at the end of December. So if you start playing the timeline out, we could fold it in.
Sounds like we're getting close. Yeah, I assume most of these
But
invoices are due 30
but it's
days,
also
30
important.
times.
It's also important to remember. I say this. We're also going, and again, I don't want to use it. I have no interest in using the funds, but we are issuing the revenue anticipation note sometime in November. So when I speak to $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 remaining, I'm not even accounting for that revenue anticipation. I'm not speaking about that. That again is going into its own account separately from what I discussed. It's not. I don't want the impression to be that it's $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 after you're using those funds. It's that plus the revenue anticipation though.
Okay.
So, I mean, are you saying that from a financial standpoint, we should not be worried about the cash flow on this sort of?
I think the
Okay.
council should be worried about the cash flow, but I also don't think that should be
I
a
mean,
reason.
should we
to hold.
delay
I
this
don't
by a
think that
month
that's a
to
reason.
help
don't
with the
think-
cash flow situation?
I
Or
don't
does it
think
not
that.
matter?
I don't think that using the cash, I don't think the cash flow is why this should or should not go forward. We will
Okay.
find a way to make this work.
Great, thank you.
And, you know, I'll chime in on that. Obviously, I think, and all of us extremely concerned about the cash flow based on the last report that Andy gave us and the mayor, obviously. But in terms of these body cams, I'll do everything, and I think many of us humanly possible to get this moving forward. We're finally there, folks, and this has been, my gosh, 2.5, almost 3 years in the making. I do want to thank the Troy Police. I want to thank Chief Owens, the mayor, Andy. I know you put a lot of work into this. I want to thank the prior council also, because the prior council made this a priority. It was bipartisan. I want to thank these council members also. This is a team effort. This is critical. It's a piece of the puzzle that we've all been talking about to hopefully bring us into the 21st century and begin to put an end to the gun violence on the street. This is one of the many, many pieces. And I really want to thank all the effort that's been put into this. Please pass that along, Captain Barker. I also want to thank, even though he's my nephew, I want to thank Nick Laviano from the PBA. I know he's worked really hard, and I know the policy is in the works. We were brought up to date whereby I believe the PBA's attorney sent Rick Morrissey a number of questions, and hopefully that will get ironed out because obviously we need that policy in place so it goes on the street. Okay.
Council President?
Yeah, Councilmember Cummings.
All right, I don't know if someone else had a.
Did
Anyway,
anyone else? Okay.
I can go ahead. So speaking to the policy and the uncertainties there, I don't want to end up with a situation where we buy all these systems and are paying for them for a couple months before all the policies are nailed down and finalized. So I did want to just get a clear update from the mayor on the certainty, or the corporation council on the certainty level. If we start this process and have the cameras coming in a month, are we going to be ready for them when they get here?
I'll defer to Rick to answer that. He's more closely tied in with the discussions.
Rick, you're muted.
Rick, you are muted.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you, Rick. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All I can really tell you is that we are engaged in active negotiations. There are some difficulties. There are some proposals that are not acceptable yet to either side, I guess. And we are attempting to work those out. I'm planning on turning around a proposal back to the PBA's attorney next week, and we will go from there. In some ways, passing this legislation will be a spur to the negotiations, but it's something that we need to get going. So at least, the chief wants it on the table.
So maybe, Mayor, could I defer back to you on the strategy here? I don't want to end up paying for months of service from Axion that we can't use. My tendency would be to maybe push this off to the Public Safety Committee and make sure we have the actual policy nailed down before we spend the money on it. Yeah, I guess, can you speak to the strategy about why move this forward now versus in a couple weeks when
Sure. First of all, this is just a financial decision. This is not a Public Safety Committee issue. But more importantly, Axon is very busy right now. A lot of departments are acquiring equipment, getting things set up. If we delay on this, the 6 to 8 week time frame might become a couple more months in addition to that. This has just been going on for too long. We need to move it forward. And as Corporation Counsel indicated, this could be a spur to get us over the finish line with the policy.
And, Mayor, you hit something there. I know Councilmember Cummings mentioned kick it to the public safety. It'd have to come back to finance anyway. This is a financial transfer, but saying that, Councilmember Cummings, you still have the floor.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we've been kicking this policy around for a year and a half now. I have several questions about it that I submitted yesterday and that we started to ask some of during the public safety meeting last week. Seems like we may be a ways from a decision on that, a finalization of that. And if we're talking about a contract that costs tens of thousands of dollars a month for cameras to be sitting there waiting for the PBA to agree to the terms, I think having those cameras sitting there weakens our negotiation position, frankly, and B, I think wastes money. So I guess could either Rick or the mayor speak to the 4 particular provisions that I emailed about, and I could go through them if that would be helpful. And then yeah, I guess I'm concerned about the idea of spending this much money on a policy that's not finalized and hasn't been finalized for.
Well, we're not spending the money on the policy. We're obviously moving forward.
Right, but what's the point of having, if we buy this equipment and it sits on the shelf for 6 months, we're losing a lot of money. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but I'm concerned about the incentives that it creates to have it sitting there.
Captain
No, I
Barker,
appreciate
do you
this.
want to interject on that?
I just wanted to mention for purposes of the timeline, and I'll take myself out of the financial and policy decisions, but we're to generally the mayor's point, typically it was a 2-week product deployment period from Axon because of everything that's going on. They're still comfortable giving me that 4 to 5 to get product on site. But then after that, even once product's on site, then it's another 3 to 4 week delay to get those trainers and those additional installers on site. So if we were to, sign everything and move it forward tonight, we're still roughly 6 weeks to 2 months out, even on the fast side. And I'm not here to waver the discussion either way. It's just, I want you to have all the necessary information. So that's what we look
And you,
like. If it were to be a yes tonight, that's the timeline for us.
gotcha. And from a training perspective,
Councilmember Cummings.
yeah, from a training perspective, to what degree can that training be done before the policy is finalized?
I think the logistics of it could be done at any time.
That I'm not-
I align with the idea that I'd like to be training to be as close to the deployment of them, the actual use of them. I would defer to the chief on that final determination, but I believe that he would follow in that. We would want the use, the practical day-to-day use to be almost immediately after the training, just so it's fresh in the guys' minds. And these men and women that are going out and using them day out and they're changing their behaviors after however many years of policing are reacting to fresh training.
Thank you, Captain Barker. Councilmember Cummings.
Yeah, so I guess maybe now would be as good a time as any to go through the 4 particular questions I had about the policy. The first being the process for citizens to obtain footage of which they're the subject. What would be that process under the proposed policy? And I guess if you could speak to both, I think this would probably be for the Corporation Council primarily, what the policy is now and to what degree this would be continued to be under debate with the PBA. Each of these items.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Councilman. I really
No.
couldn't hear you. You speak
Oh.
very softly in this computer.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
So yeah, I guess with each of these items, I'd like to hear what the process outlined in the existing contract or proposed agreement would be, and to what degree they would be continue to be under discussion with the PBA, and or if there's a disagreement with the PBA on these items. The first being what the process would be for citizens to obtain footage of which they're the subject.
What, I don't
You're
want to
fine.
touch that? Okay.
Yeah.
Councilman, I am not comfortable discussing the provisions as they exist right now.
Okay.
I am quite comfortable taking your suggestions and to the extent that I can, incorporating them
Great.
in our policy proposal. Okay, but these negotiations are sensitive. They're with PBA, and there's an understood provision of confidence
Okay.
between the parties. So
Understood.
I just don't think that would be right for me to do that. But I can tell you this, I mean, you asked for public access or something like that. There is always FOIL for
Certainly.
members of the public. Okay.
Certainly. I know there have been questions as to whether or not the timeliness of that process, and particular, I guess I didn't, this goes to the broader question on this contract in particular. I didn't see the actual quote with an outline of the specific products that we're buying from Axion, in both in terms of products and services. So I don't know are we getting an unlimited plan, or what's the time frame at which footage is being saved, existing, and to what degree the public and or council members, public administration officials have the ability to sort of freeze and make sure footage is not deleted if it's not unlimited. So maybe that's first a question for Stephen Barker or Andy as to are we getting an unlimited plan here, or is there a relatively short timeline for storage?
So council member, we are going to go with an unlimited cloud-based storage.
Okay.
The retention periods of which I'll defer to the corporation council, but ability to save data, it's unlimited.
From a financial standpoint, we theoretically could store all data on an unlimited basis.
Yes, sir.
Without incurring additional costs. Okay.
Yes, sir.
That's good to hear. And that alleviates some of my concerns as to preservation of data, at least. Although
if I could
we'll
jump
have
in,
to,
and I think Councilmember Cummings, that was a really big issue when this first came about. The storage issue was
Certainly.
discussed at length. I think maybe, yeah, you were in the council then a couple of years ago. So good point. Thank you.
yeah, and I guess, so to be clear, just because it's technically possible to store it on an indefinite basis, is that still an ongoing point of contention and or debate with the PBA in the negotiations around the policy, the terms of storage? Or are we basically storing the data on a unlimited, infinite basis?
There is a storage provision in the policy that is being negotiated.
Okay. I guess I'll voice my general favor for if it doesn't increase the costs for infinite storage. I don't think there's reason to delete information unless we need to. Let's see. All right, well, so I mean, I guess from a financial standpoint, I'm still concerned about moving forward with a policy like this with a payment like this without the policy in place. But I guess I don't know that I'm here. I'd like to hear from some other council members as to whether or not that concern is shared, or whether or not folks just want to do everything they can to push it forward as quickly as possible. Obviously, we want this done as soon as we wanted it done last year, but there's lots of detailed negotiations involved, obviously, and I don't want to end up getting in a position where we're paying for something we can't use, or that's not providing all the benefits it could to our residents.
Thank you, Council Member Cummings. I'll open it up to other members first.
Council President,
Thank you, Council Member Steele.
I'm fairly new to this process, and I have to say I'm really disappointed in the amount of backup that we received and the timeframe regarding this. We had a public safety meeting the other night. It seems to me that many of these details could have been discussed, and certainly Councilman Cummings requested information that has not been brought forward. We were under the impression that we would get some of that information before this vote. Procedurally, I have a question. It looks like even though we're the policymaking branch of government, we're not going to see this policy. We're just handing it over to the administration and PBA to negotiate. And so we'll have no input, is that my understanding, in how these body cameras are used, and won't know until after that agreement whether a policeman can turn it on or off at will. I feel that as fine a tool as a body camera may be, without an effective policy and enforcement, it will not accomplish what we really had hoped that it might. So that's my concern tonight. And if anyone can enlighten me on the process and why we get these very important pieces of legislation at the last minute with very little backup, I find very frustrating and totally inadequate.
Thank you, Council Member Steele. For the record, I want to make it clear the administration, Rick Morrissey, the Corporation Council, As soon as it was forwarded from the administration, it was sent to council members. So, Rick, I know that, you've worked on this, and I'll let you take it from there. Regarding the policy, I know Councilmember Cummings sent the administration some questions regarding the policy with the PBA, who is negotiating, their council negotiating with the Corporation Council. So I'll pass it over to Rick just in terms of the policy and, the timing, and then we can flesh this out.
Well, I just wanted to assure Councilwoman Steele that we share her concerns 100%, that we will not be agreeing to anything that is not an effective and comprehensive policy. I can't go into the details that we have that are still being negotiated, but the policy is meant to ensure accountability and to ensure that that both the public and the officers have that a certain fairness to both the public and the officers. As to I'm sorry, what was your next question that you wanted me to answer? Can you hear me?
Councilmember Steele.
I was wondering if the council will see this policy before it's implemented. Apparently, we have no input in it. What is our role other than asking questions and not getting answers? What can we do to have our concerns?
First of all, as I told Councilman Cummings, I'm totally open to your suggestions. If you have concerns, please communicate them to me, because I don't know what they are necessarily. I suspect that a lot of your concerns match my own, because we don't want to have a useless piece of equipment on our police officers. We wanted to do a job. So, by all means, if you want to have input, send me your thoughts, please.
Council President.
Yes, Councilmember Zaluski.
So I wanted to echo what Councilperson Steele is talking about, and also Councilman Cummings. This is the body camera program has been something that we've been working on for probably the greater part of a decade now, because I remember when I was previously on the council, we were talking about this. So this is a long time coming. And then just several days ago, we were presented with legislation to transfer a large sum of money to get this program, to kick it, to get it moving forward. We often get yelled at when we submit our own legislation late. I would call this legislation late. I think we would all agree on that. And I guess my question is, after waiting for the greater part of a decade to get this moving, why are we suddenly rushing it now without having that policy in place and letting the council review what will end up being the final policy before allocating such a large sum of money to move this forward? I guess it's just an ordering issue. Why are we moving so fast on the money part, yet we don't have the policy finalized? It's still in negotiation, and who knows how long that negotiation may continue. I'm just echoing what I've already heard, and I feel it as well, that we've only had a few days to look at this legislation, and now we're expected to vote on it.
And I'll forward it to Rick, and after you speak, Rick, maybe I can intertwine and dovetail Councilmember Zaluski also. If I understand this, the way it was explained to me is, in terms of the negotiation of the policy, that's always in terms of any type of policy such as this has been the mayor the union and the corporation counsel and the union's attorney, much like negotiating a contract. If I'm wrong, please tell me, but I have, checked with other municipalities, how'd you go about this? We don't handle the negotiation of the policy, but we should be, as Corporation Counsel Morrissey stated, we should be offering our suggestions, like Council Member Cummings. We should obviously know what's in that policy.
Yeah,
So
Council President, can I respond to that?
Yeah. Yep, I'll hand
So
it.
I agree with you. We are not, as a legislative body, we don't engage in negotiation at all. Like I totally understand that. But usually, you brought up a contract. Typically, when the city negotiates a contract, let's say with the PBA or the UFA, they have their negotiations, and then what happens? We receive legislation, and then we're voting on a contract that includes finances and it includes policy, all as part of that contract. So we see it all at the same time. Here, I think the issue, and again, I'm not super upset about this. I'm pointing it out that this is a lot for us to be reviewing in just a few days. But here we're being asked to allocate money, but the policy portion is not there, versus receiving something that would have it all in one contract.
I'll throw it over to Rick and the mayor, and I did also have a couple of thoughts, but Rick, Mayor.
Mayor, you gonna go first, or you want me?
No, I just wanted to say, we feel we're approaching the finish line here with the negotiations, or at least I do. Rick may have a different opinion. I'll let him give voice to that. But it's an effort to move this forward. We have been talking, as everybody has indicated, we've been talking about it for a long time. The public is keenly interested in moving this program forward. We don't do it now. That's your prerogative, not to authorize the funding for it. But then we could be back here a year from now still talking about it. It's time to stop talking and start doing, in my opinion.
Thank you, Mayor. Rick?
I wrote the legislation at the request of the administration. I think that the thinking is, just as the mayor articulated, that we need to move this process along. And this only has to do with the selection of the vendor and the purchase of the cameras. The policy, I can't promise you that it will fall into place, but I'm hopeful it will. There were some issues raised in the last PBA draft that I'm having trouble with. However, as I said, I'm going to turn it around to have something with them something to give them next week. And whether they agree or not, I guess will be up to them. But I believe this process began a year ago, and I was not involved at that time. I don't know all the reasons why it has taken that long, but I think some of them have to do with PBA, and I'll own from August 11th to date. But these things do take time. People's positions change over time. Things happen in the public eye that have resulted in new concerns, I think, especially on the part of police officers, and they have resulted in some complications with the policy.
And, I guess my question, Rick, is, I guess, would you compare the body cam policy with, say, use of force policy, or, their domestic incident policy? I guess, policy, contract, I mean, obviously we want to know the details of the policies. I mean, that's clear. We're not there yet. The question is, do we appropriate funding to hire a vendor? I feel strongly, from me, I'm one vote, yes. But saying that, the policy, I compare it to many other policies that the council is not intimately involved with, but obviously, like Councilmember Cummings has had many questions regarding use of force policy, domestic incident policy, et cetera. So, I mean, I guess the question is, how deep does the council want to go into the policy? And obviously we should have input, we should give you input, et cetera, et cetera. But as long as I've been on the council, I've never negotiated a policy in terms of, the police policies. So, my question is, I'm not an attorney. Is this a policy? Is it an overarching, contract that we normally would approve? And I see it being different.
It is a policy. It is a policy that in the last collective bargaining agreement, we agreed to negotiate. I believe PERB has ruled that some aspects of a body camera policy are negotiable. That is what we are doing. It is, in my mind, an executive function. It's so much more difficult to negotiate if you're actually negotiating by a committee of 7 or 15 or something like that. However, I fall back on my suggestion earlier. If any council member has specific concerns that they want to relay to me, I will certainly, review them and attempt to implement, those that I feel would work in a policy.
Yeah, I mean,
That's the best
I
I can
kind of
do.
view it as we're buying the equipment, the legislative branch, we're buying the equipment, we're authorizing the mayor to execute that agreement with a vendor. But in terms of, like purchasing firearms, do we negotiate the policy for the use of force for those firearms? We do not. I'm trying to distinguish this, but we have input. And I think, that's the distinguishment that I see at least.
Council President?
Yes, Councilmember Zaluski.
Yeah, so I think we've given some voice to some of our frustrations with the process. I do agree that the program, as the mayor did say, this is something we've been waiting on for a long time, and I am definitely supportive of this overall. But I wanted to join my colleagues in just expressing a little bit of our frustration with some of the process and the lead time that we had on this. And going forward, we just appreciate a little bit more notice so that we can have these discussions before the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Zaluski. Further discussion?
Council President,
Yes, Councilmember Gully, and then we'll go back to Councilmember Cummings if Councilmember Ash McPherson and McDermott don't have comments. Councilmember Gully.
Mayor, Rick, I can certainly understand Councilman Cummings' concern of spending money without a resolve at the end, but I know that we're getting closer. And my communication with some people that are working here are telling me that it's just slowed down. Can we feel that you guys can speed up the process with these meetings and information and come to resolve in this 6 to 8 weeks by the time we get the equipment and get the services in? Can we look forward to finding that resolved by then so we don't waste much time and that equipment is not sitting around? That would be my first question. The second thing would be that in the policy, I know there's some particular issues that some of the council people have addressed, especially Councilman Cummings. With that, in regards to those questions, are we looking at template contracts from other municipalities that have the body cam systems, and are we implementing a lot of that based on how that's working in their municipalities, and will that give us a solid contract at the end? And again, hopefully that can be completed in the next 6 to 8 weeks so we can move forward on a timely manner. We need the body cams, but we need them right. And I'd like to see that happen. But we all have to get together as a team here and pull together and get this completed. So I'm just hoping that that can be the case.
Thank you, Councilmember Gully. Would the mayor like to hit that?
Sure. With respect to the second question, yes, we have looked at other department's policies. In fact, the PBA sat with us and reviewed several policies from other departments and helped draft the draft policies that we're negotiating over now. So they've been involved in the process probably a year and a half at this point. And we have looked at and tried to learn from those who went before us into this area. And yes, we have the resolve to push and wrap this up before the equipment gets here. But it takes two.
Sometimes three, you never know. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Gully. Councilmember Ash McPherson McDermott, before we get back to Councilmember Cummings.
Council President.
Yep, Councilmember Ash McPherson.
I just gonna tail dove on Councilman Zaluski. He was saying that back, they were working on it when he was on the council several years ago. I know back in 16 and 17, this was a process of talking about the body cams and trying to get them to move forward. This is something that all of us that have been on the councils before have been working on and wanting to get this moving forward. My question that I'm going to ask is, I don't know if it's Andy or to the mayor or to Steve Barker, as far as the price wise, is there a reason if this doesn't go forward tonight, is the price going to go higher? Is it going to be lower? That's the reason? Because I do have confidence between our corporate counsel and the mayor's office and the PBA to get this done. The people want it. It's something that needs to be done. You can't sit around. So you got to move this forward. We've been working on it for these many years. So where are we on the price wise? I don't know who can answer that.
I think Andy can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we got these on state contract. So the price is good for whatever term that is. If I could predict prices in the future, I'd probably have a Nobel Prize. But I think, we've been working with this company. I think there's some good faith between us. And I think if there were a delay, that they would continue to work with us and do the best they can to hold that price. But that's pure speculation on my part. I can't guarantee that.
Council members, just from the department side.
Captain Barker.
Absolutely. So we started, obviously it's a years-long process, but we started with probably dozens of companies and we finally filtered. So over those years that we've been working through this, we've been working with multiple people at each company. We have a pretty decent relationship with those at Axon. They've kind of educated us along the way. They've provided resources outside of their company if we had questions and we wanted to check and balance information. So there's some trust within that pricing model. Like the mayor said, it's Sourcewell pricing and contract pricing. So it's stable to a certain extent. Our design here was to make sure that we have products on scene as soon as we're ready to move. As soon as that policy is agreed upon at the executive level, then it becomes kind of our unit's issue here in technology and grants, and myself and my sergeant will be able to kind of run with it from there and make sure that we're getting things done. It's just those delays that everyone has spoken of. It's 2 months here, it's 3 months there. It's kind of trying to run these two things concurrently.
Just
Thank you.
to dovetail off what Captain Barker said, the procurement is off of what's called Sourcewell, which is a purchasing consortium of various local governments. It runs very similar to state contract, and that's how this was procured. So that's how the pricing is developed for this.
Thank you. Council President?
Yes, Councilmember Ash McPherson.
I know the conversations that we're having tonight as far as the equipment and whatnot, and Captain Barker, what you were saying, I know back in 2016 and 17, the conversation was trying to get a vendor that was going to be able to provide the equipment, the storage of the cameras, the storage of the videos and everything. And I know that was a big part of this. And it sounds like you've gotten to a point that we have a vendor that sounds good to have. So I mean, this is something that, yes, the policy isn't in place, but we're not the policy maker on it. I think if we got to go forward with the equipment, we should. And that's where, my point of this is. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Ash McPherson. Councilmember McDermott before Councilmember Cummings. Did you want to say anything? It's up to you.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
I feel this is just another level of transparency, and we're adding to our police officers who work every day to keep our city safe, and which will help build and continue to build trust within our community.
Thank you, Councilmember McDermott. Definitely. Councilmember Cummings.
Yeah, thank you. And I agree as well that this could be a really good tool for transparency. I think the details of the policy will be what determines whether it is, which is why I'm concerned. But I in terms of the finances, I did just sort of realize part of the problem here is that we don't have the actual quote. So I'm not sure exactly what the products and services are that we're buying, but if someone that does have access to that can say, so if we spend the $200,000 is it $200,000 to buy the actual equipment? If we spend whatever it is to buy the actual equipment, is that a purchase that we then own them and use them until they break? Or is it a lease where we're actually paying sort of by the month for the use of the equipment? And the reason I ask that is, maybe we can move forward with buying the equipment, and it won't actually hurt us that much to have it sitting in a locker for 3 months because it won't be being used. The wear and tear won't happen, and it'll still last an extra 3 months at the end of its term. Whereas if we're paying, an actual monthly sort of lease fee on it, that would be more of a concern. So I guess from a financial standpoint, can someone speak to the structure of the contract as to whether or not we're actually losing out by owning it for a period of time when it's not being used?
If I could jump in, I looked at the resolution that has the master services and purchasing agreement. I thought I saw that. Is it not in there?
So the purchasing agreement refers to a quote, but the quote is not provided.
Okay, Andy? Andy?
My understanding of the financing proposal that the police department got, and again, this is just my financial review of it. There's bondable, there's expenses in year one for the cameras themselves that allow the band, it's a ban right now, but that allow the debt proceeds to be used to expend for that. The 119,000, then, as I said, are classified as operating costs. And reviewing the
what is that upfront cost? Sorry,
I don't have the dollar amount. It's if I remember right, it's approximately somewhere between $140,000 and $150,000. In years 2, 3, 4, and 5 of the agreement that's in the resolution, the cost is about $264,000, all of which are classified as operating costs and would be within the city's operating budget.
Not boundable.
Now you cannot use debt. The only debt proceeds you can use are in year one for the actual equipment.
So those ongoing costs are for the services, not for a lease or for purchase of more equipment or replacement equipment.
I would defer to Captain Barker as to what's in the proposal itself in years 2, 3, 4, and 5. I mean, I looked at more in conjunction with the police department as what was equipment and what was not, to get the dollar amount of what's on this ordinance determined.
Council members, so to that end, you're paying for the original equipment to get here, so we'll own the equipment improper. However, the spacing of that 5-year agreement is such that the equipment is immediately replaced upon it being defective or for breaking. And then also a technology refresh at the 3rd year. In the 3rd year, they're going to replace with whatever the cameras that we choose at that time. Obviously, many of you understand technology. We may not jump to the newest camera. We'd make the determination at the time, or the chief and the executives would, depending on the different features. But at this point, if we were to sign this, move forward, we'd own the cameras in hand. Obviously, those would be proprietary to Axon, but the data is not. And the data we'd take, if we went to another vendor in the future, we'd take our data with us. But year 3 is when those.
Okay. And so at that year 3, do we pay for that upgrade, or is that included in that service fee that you're talking about, the 200 and?
It's included in the quote that was already provided to us.
Gotcha. So they automatically will upgrade the cameras for us in year 3. But it does sound like as soon as we get the cameras, whether or not we turn them on, whether or not we get the training, whether or not we get the services, that 5-year starts ticking and we start paying that. Is that
Yes.
correct? Or is there any provision to get the cameras and then have the actual program with them start once the policy is actually in place and we can use the cameras?
No, that timeline would start upon the receipt of the cameras, whatever that 2 months that we space out. At year 3, you'd get the refresh, and then also at the very end of the contract, at year 5, we'd see another refresh of new equipment in hand.
Okay.
Okay.
Council President,
Yes, Councilmember Gully.
Captain Barker, that brings up a couple interesting questions.
Oh, hold on, Councilmember Cummings still at the floor. Councilmember Cummings, are you all set?
I've got lots more questions, but we can, if Jim has one that's dovetailing off of that, that's fine.
Councilmember Gully.
Well, one, I will say it would certainly have been a lot better to have that quote in front of us with the details so we know what we're buying when we're spending money. So I will tell you that the backup on this was very, very weak. And that's a little frustrating. But we moved really quick here on this, and I understand the importance of it, and certainly I want to support it. With the contract, do we have a way that we could, even if we pass this tonight and we agree to purchase the equipment, can we stall out that date until we do accumulate the policy and have the equipment shipped as of that date so we're not losing that time period? Can we, maybe shift out the delivery so we can match it up to when the policy comes in play?
So I would imagine that's a conversation I can have with the vendor. Obviously, like we discussed earlier, the pricing could potentially change, but it's on contract or it's on that source well. So as long as that's active, then I would imagine that pricing remains the same. But I'll make a note here and I'll get an answer to that.
I believe, Council President.
Yes,
Can I-
1 second,
can I just finish?
Councilmember Gully, you still have the floor.
I'll be brief. Captain Barker, that wasn't my concern. I'm saying if we pass tonight and we purchase the equipment, can we have them save the ship date to when we can qualify the policy so that our receiving date of the camera will come in play after we've actuated the policy and we can move forward. So we're not taking possession. We can pay to conquer the pricing, but can we take possession 4 weeks out when our legal team and the administration have gotten together and settled a policy and put it in place?
Understood, sir. I apologize. I don't have the answer to that. I'll find it out. I'll get you an answer.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Captain. And, just for the record, I do want to say for the public's knowledge, the way the process works, I'll get the legislation from the administration, so will Councilmember Zaluski. I will refer it to committee per the rules. I referred it to finance. I received it on Monday. I referred it immediately to finance. Everyone has had this since Monday. And I'm just, just for the record, I'm being very, very open. We had a public safety meeting on Tuesday. Many of these questions could have been asked then. I'm not sure if folks just started looking at the agenda today, but also, just in the future, let's try to hit these questions, obviously. I sent a number of questions, for instance, on the charter spectrum over the last 3 days. Much communication has been going back and forth. And I know, Councilmember Cummings, you did have some questions that you sent, I believe, yesterday. But, saying that, just for the public's knowledge, we received it on Monday. We've had it for a few days. And this is good. This is good discussion. Councilmember Cummings.
Yeah, no, I agree. And typically the way this process is supposed to work is that we have a finance meeting where we get to ask these questions and they can say, we'll come back to you with the answers. In this case, we have it right prior to a regular meeting, which means they won't have a chance to come back to us with those answers, which is where the frustration here comes. It's not that there came to us in the last few days. That's fine. We had time to review it. We did, and we asked questions. The problem is there's not time for that back and forth that is supposed to be in the process. So I guess my tendency would be to move to table, maybe pass this through finance, but table it at the regular for a final vote in a week or two once we can get the answers to these questions, because there are some significant questions. There are some significant backup that we still have yet to provide
Are you
receive.
making a motion to table now, Councilmember Cummings?
No, I think it makes sense to pass it through finance, so I'm not going to make a motion to table it at this point, but I would hope that my colleagues will consider a tabling at the regular meeting to allow the typical 2-week standing period, both for the public to have a chance to review it, as well as for us to get the backup that we've requested. And I guess
Okay.
so that's that. I guess we can move forward with a vote on this
Very
for now,
good.
unless other people have other
I-
questions. I don't want
okay.
to delay it forever, but I
Good.
do have lots more to discuss.
Okay. I am now, if everyone's good, going to close the discussion, and I'll say it really slow to give people an opportunity. All right, I'm going to take a slow roll. Councilmember Gully,
I'm going to vote yes to move this forward.
Councilmember Ash McPherson,
Yes.
Councilmember Steele,
Aye.
Councilmember Cummings.
Aye.
Councilmember Zaluski,
Aye.
Councilmember McDermott,
Yes.
Council President Mantello, I vote aye. 7 yeses, 0 nos, and I apologize, bear with me because we have a guest with us also. Ordinance, sorry, I moved around.
76.
Thank you. Ordinance 76 has carried 7-0. Thank you, Councilmember.
I'm sorry, a correction,
Sorry,
that
it
was
was 75.
75.
75.
Ordinance 75. That's the last time I'll take your ordinance, Councilmember. Yes. Ordinance 75 carries 7-0. I moved around to look at the agreement, Councilmember Cummings, that we were talking about. We have a guest with us, so I'm going to break period before we go into Ordinance 76, and that is Terrence Davis. He is the father of Sean Davis, and I want to thank Terrence for being so patient. We actually were just talking about body cams, which have been in the works for our police officers for quite some time. So very serious subject. And Terrence, you and Latoya have just, and your family, I can't imagine what you've been going through. And I just want to thank you for your patience. And I want to hand it off to Terrence. He would like to talk about a resolution that is on the agenda tonight, that being a resolution for Terrence's son, Sean Davis, to name a portion of Old 6th Avenue in memory of Sean. I think Terrence just wanted a few moments of your time to explain his reasoning when he told me that this was very, very important to he and his family. Thank you, Terrence. There you go. You're on mute. And if you take it, there you go. Yep. We can't hear you. Are you there?
And maybe that your phone is separately muted.
Is your phone muted maybe, Terrence? I see you shaking your head. There we go. You're connecting. Looks like it's, there you go. You're connected. How's that? We can't hear you. Okay. You're off mute. Your video's not on. Terrence? You're back on mute. You're off mute. I could call you if that works. And place you're back on. I don't see you though. Hello? Okay, do you want me to call you, Terrence? I'm going to try calling Terrence.
Hello?
Hi, Terrence?
Yes.
Okay, I'm not sure what happened. It's Carmela Mantello. We see that you're on, but for some reason it doesn't. Yeah, for some reason it doesn't seem to be working the video. So I have the phone and I have you on speaker, and I'd be happy to put your voice on the meeting if that works.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Go ahead. Everyone can hear Terrence, correct? Okay.
I want to thank everybody for tonight, for coming out. It's very important to me that Apostle 06 be named after my son, to remind people of, the mistakes that's going on in Troy and around the world. That a little kid outside playing, he should not understand how that happened to him, especially when he's playing outside. This kid was a very independent, worked very hard, was very bright. I want people to recognize, that there was a bright young kid that had a bright future. And and just to look at his name, just to remind you of not the mistakes not to make again. And to make the youth better for the little kids and even for the grown-ups. To have somewhere to be and to understand that, it's very important that we need to keep this thing, keep his name alive. Because my son was everything. He'd do anything for anybody. And I would like his name to be up there on the street sign so it reminds everybody, of him.
Thank you, Terrence. Is there anything? Yeah, you're free to add anything you'd like.
It's a real big deal for my family because it really hurts us very bad that we can't have him here. But I'd rather for him to be sitting on the street sign, for people to see for generations and generations on, so they can know about him and his life. I appreciate everything, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Terrence. Thank you so much for joining us this evening on behalf of the council. We did have a moment of silence at our last meeting on behalf of Aishan, and the resolution is in front of us this evening, and we will be acting on it. And I just want to once again express my sincere thoughts and prayers to you and your family. I think I can do that on behalf of all of the council and the administration and the mayor. So thank you again for joining us. And we're going to jump right to that resolution. I'm going to go out of order. So if you want to watch us on YouTube, we're live. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Terrence. Please tell LaToya we said hello, and thank you. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Yep.
Very much.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. All right, I am going to jump to resolution 96 and move and just skip Ordinance 76 right now, and then we'll go back to Ordinance 76. And Resolution 96, I'm just going to read it real quick, but I just want folks to know where it came from. After Aishan's death, I visited with the family, and the father who you just spoke to or heard from, Terrence, pulled me aside, and this was literally within days of Aishan's death, requested that Old Six, a portion of it, be named Aishan's place. And I just looked at Terrence, and Terrence said the reasoning was he wants to try to deter violence in that area and all across the city and the nation, as you heard. So I, was thinking, okay, maybe they might want it down in Lansingburg, but Terrence made a specific request to have it on Old Six. So for the last couple of weeks, I've been in touch with the family, and they have requested the status, and I told them that we would be acting on this tonight. I want to thank Rick Morrissey, who worked on this resolution. And I'm just going to go into this real quick. A resolution to commemorate the life of Aishan Davis by designating a portion of Old Sixth Avenue, Aishan's place. Whereas on September 13th, 2020, Aishan Davis, a beloved 11-year-old boy, was shot and killed on Old Sixth Avenue in the city of Troy. And whereas Aishan, precocious, good-natured, and industrious, with just the right amount of boyish mischievousness, was adored by his family, his friends, and his community, and still fell the innocent and unintended victim of a senseless crime of gun violence. And whereas the family of Aishan is devastated by this grief and loss, and whereas in the midst of their mourning, the family of Aishan has expressed the desire that his all too brief life and sudden tragic death not be forgotten, not have been for nothing, and serve as a memorial to the indisputable truth that our children's lives must matter to everyone in our community. And whereas the people of Troy desire to pay respect to the family of Aishan in their grief, and to honor and memorialize the life of Aishan, and to deter other acts of senseless violence to whatever extent possible by setting a marker that may remind us of the unthinkable costs of such acts. And whereas the people of Troy, in conformity with the intentions and desires of Aishan's family, wish to set that marker and pay tribute to Aishan by designating with appropriate signage the beginning of Old Sixth Avenue at the intersection with Jacob Street as Aishan's place. Now therefore be it resolved that the beginning of Old Sixth Avenue at the intersection with Jacob Street shall bear the honorary designation of Aishan's place, and that Memorial Street sign which shall reflect the honorary designation may be placed at or near the beginning of Old Sixth Avenue or other appropriate locations as approved by the city engineer. And be it further resolved that this honorary designation shall not alter or change in any way the official street name of Old Sixth, nor in any way alter the official city map. Do I have a motion and then a second? And then I just want to add two things, and then we can go into discussion. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Gully. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Ash McPherson. Saying that since this legislation has arisen, some folks, a resident down on Old Sixth Avenue made the point, that she may not be supportive of this effort. And I understand where she was coming from. She did mention, the resident mentioned this doesn't address the root of gun violence, neighborhood violence. I certainly get that. And on the agenda tonight, we see surveillance cams, body cams. We've talked about quality of life task force, police, community policing. we've talked about so many efforts, Park Walk and Talk. This is a tiny, tiny piece of the puzzle, but as the father expressed to me, this is not just to keep Aishan's memory alive. This is hopefully a deterrent. This is hopefully, like he told me the day I stopped by their house, Carmela, if this stops one crime, one criminal activity, drug activity, then that sign was worth it. He turned to me, he said, when people come around that corner, I want them to think twice. I understand some of the concerns. I understand, oh, is this a precedence? Saying that, I think that we can work together with the community, the couple of residents who did express a concern with this, to address those concerns. I also, know that people who have coached Aishan and people that are coaching his brothers and know his family are super supportive of this also. I've also talked to a couple residents. They want the park cleaned up. I get that too. And I think we can all work to make that happen. We actually have some neighborhood improvement funds left over. Maybe we could use some of those funds to clean up that park. But saying that, listen, this isn't going to bring Aishan back. This is something that the family requested of me that day. And, as you hear my son in the background right now, who has been very lively tonight for some reason, we have our children. Terrence and Latoya lost a son. So in my eyes, I just felt I'm carrying through with this, and we can work with the community. We can figure this out. We can figure out the precedents, but I want to do this for the family. So we have a motion. We have a second. I'd be happy to discuss.
Council President.
Councilmember Zaluski.
So as everyone here knows, because I did respond to the resident who had concerns, I'm a co-sponsor on this. I'm a co-sponsor because I believe strongly that this is a very small way to memorialize someone who obviously should still be alive today. And so we're all grieving. The whole community is grieving. And we know that we want to do something. And I think this is reasonable. I do. And to Mr. Davis and your wife, just know that, all of city government, shares your pain. And we're trying to get control of, gun violence in the city of Troy. And, that's something that all of us are dedicated to. All of that being said, we can't ignore what our residents are saying. And this neighborhood has been traumatized by violence over the years to a point where, they're just tired of it. They're tired of it. And, the one resident that reached out to the entire council made her case and made it very clear that they want to move beyond these traumatic events, and that they feel, at least in the case of this person, that's a sign being there would continue to remind them of the tragedy and not allow this neighborhood to move beyond it. So we have to take pause. The idea was a good one, and it came from the heart, and that's why I signed on to it, because I agreed with it. But we cannot ignore the neighbors. This is their neighborhood. And again, they're the ones that have been dealing with this level of violence and crime for a long time now. And it's not just, I should say, it's not just one neighbor that's brought this to our attention, it's several. And we need to represent everybody in this case. So I want to see something that will memorialize Aishan without question. I don't know what the answer is but I think we're moving too fast on this. I think we need to take a step back and bring the neighbors together and talk through this with them and understand their pain, just as we're trying to understand the pain of the parents of Ashawn. I don't want this to be an us versus them. It's a positive thing. Memorializing someone who, like I said, should be alive today, should never be something that we have to, fight with each other over or anything like that. So we need to bring the community together. I think in this case, like I said, we probably moved just a little too fast on it and didn't really fully understand the impact that this, what seems like an innocuous motivation, the impact that it could have on the people that are living in this neighborhood every day and have been dealing with, the result of gun violence in the streets. So that being said, I don't know if we want to have further commentary or if you want me to make a motion on this, but I would like to take pause because I don't want to ignore the residents who are reaching out to us and asking us to hear their voices as well.
Councilmember Zaluski, I would like, if you have other residents, I have one resident who said they have one other resident. I actually spoke to a couple of residents down there who, you know what they told me? They want the park cleaned up. They said, listen, that's what we want.
Well, we all agree on that.
Yeah, and no, but I'm saying they were not opposed to the sign, and their message was very, very clear. What we want attention here. In terms of, the pain, somebody said something to me today that hit, and I won't say his name, but I talked to him at length about this because he's very familiar with the neighborhood and works with a lot of the kids down there. And the person said to me, well, the person that contacted you wants to forget about what's happening. But the problem is, it is happening. And it kind of struck me, I get it. We don't like what's happening in our neighborhood. We just want to, forget about it, forget about that pain that's buried inside of us. And it hit me because what Terrence is saying is, I want people to remember that pain, to put a stop to it, to essentially, stop the violence. And I see where he's coming from. And I see it very clearly because I don't think, Terrence is just, I want this because I'm grieving. He sees it every day. He was down there with his son when his son played in the league and when his son was at the playground. He knows the streets of Troy. A few of us know the streets of Troy. I was born North Central. Councilmember Ash McPherson's down there every other day, down in the Burg, down in North Central, down in some of these really, tough hot spots. And so saying that, to me, this whole Ashawn, it has struck me just so differently. And I think the nation as a whole, the Davis family literally was receiving funds to this day from outsiders outside the state, state legislators getting involved, introducing legislation. Something Ashawn hit us so differently, and it's not to minimize all of the other horrific killings that have happened, but what maybe it is doing is shedding to light and hopefully deterring that one person from committing a crime, from taking out their gun, doing a drive-by shooting. Will it? Who knows? But like Terrence said, it's one incident, if we can deter, then, that obviously has helped. But saying that, what we would be doing tonight through this resolution is putting it in motion. It doesn't mean that the sign goes up tomorrow, that the sign goes up 3 weeks from now. It doesn't mean that we're not going to sit down with the residents, that the sign isn't even made. So saying that what this is it begins the first step. We need to obviously sit down with the community, and the administration obviously is going to work with us on this, but you know, the placement, everything. So this is a first step. Much has to happen from here. Like I said, the sign's not going up tomorrow, but in my opinion, I know you're moving forward potentially with a motion to table, but saying that I'm just going to make a, you know, an argument and a plea not to table it, because this to me is a first step to get that conversation going. I'm not one to, you know, pause the legislation, put it on the back burner, a month goes by, 2 months go by, 3 months go by. I truly believe you either want this or you don't, but we can work with the community, the details, everything. This isn't going to happen overnight.
Yeah, Council President, I want to say that I do want it, first of all. I think we all want it. But we also have to listen to the individuals, the residents of that neighborhood that have strong feelings on it, and we just can't ignore them. And I'll also say that in terms of a sign, a commemorative sign deterring violence, call me pessimistic. I just, folks that want to shoot other people up, they're going to do that, and a sign's not going to deter them. And that's just the sad reality of where we're at right now in society. And we've got to, we have to address the core causes of gun violence. I just don't think that, you know, that a commemorative sign is going to deter that. I could be completely wrong, but that has nothing to do with this. For me, this is just about that we have some residents who feel that their neighborhood has been under siege for a while, and that they believe that looking at a sign like that every day is going to remind them of tragedy, and they feel that they can't get beyond where they've been for so long. I mean, we all read the same letter, and now I think it's, you know, 3 individuals that have reached out to us, all from that neighborhood. So again, I want to do something. I feel very strongly. I felt strongly enough that I signed on to this right away, but I'm taking pause now, and I don't think there's no reason not to just slow it down and bring the community together to make sure that this is what everyone wants. You know, if we waited another week or 2 weeks, that doesn't change anything. And yet it could cause pain to people that are living right in this neighborhood if we do move forward too quickly.
Council President?
Yeah, and just to clarify, I never said just one shooting. It also, if you read the resolution, it also says and other crimes. So if it stops a drug deal, if it stops any other crimes, it's worth it. Councilmember Steele, I believe. Yes.
Yes, thank you. I received an email late today. It was sent to me personally, so I'd like to share it with you because I think it does speak to the urgency or lack thereof of this resolution tonight. But I want to preface it by saying that I think we all, our entire community, has been touched and feels the terrific pain that the family must be going through at this time. And I know many have stepped up in support, and whatever our action is tonight, it is in no way an indication of any lack of support. This is from a neighbor, and I think we need to listen to everyone in our community and weigh it accordingly. But it says, it has been a hard month for the neighbors of Old 6th Avenue. They need the peace, rest, and space for grieving too. It would only make sense to give time to ask the residents and homeowners of Old 6th Avenue before voting on this resolution tonight. Please talk to them before acting on this resolution. And so I would hope that we would honor those wishes and look at, it doesn't mean we're tabling it forever, But it just means taking a pause and being respectful of the community who is also grieving amidst this tragedy.
Thank you, Councilmember Steele. Further discussion?
Council President.
Councilmember Cummings.
Yeah. I live about a block from this location as well. And certainly the neighborhood is reeling once again. There's a sense of ongoing loss and devastation with this tragic event. And, you know, I think one of the emails we got today really hits the nail on the head that further action is needed. And I think everyone agrees with that. I certainly love the intent behind a memorial sign, but the park there is dark, hasn't been upgraded in years. I know there is a strategy citywide to be reinvesting in our neighborhood parks, and I don't know if the mayor can speak to what parks are next on the list for those reinvestments, or if that's even still a strategy given our current financial situation. But obviously there's need for reinvestment in that park, and I think that's a place where you know, the 6th Ave Park, where our focus really should be is improving those services and improving the life of people in that neighborhood. Similarly, you know, there's 3 vacant buildings and several large vacant lots, and you know, there's some good progress finally on that block, but there's a lot more to do on vacant properties. And so again, that's where I see our focus needed. I did want to briefly kick it to the mayor if you have any. I know Monica generally leads those programs, but do you have any information about our park reinvestment program, and where we're at with that, what the next couple parks are, and what would it take to prioritize the old 6th Ave Park?
So there's not a list yet that's carved in stone, but obviously we're looking at the 112th Street Park. Well, I'm sorry, Powers Park is getting some new sidewalks and fencing right now. We're looking at 112th Street Park because that is a park that gets heavy utilization. We're looking at the Canal Avenue Park as well, something in South Troy, and those are and including Old 6th Avenue, those are our priorities, but I can't say that they've been ordered in a particular sequence yet. Obviously, with the financial challenges that COVID has wrought, we are not moving ahead at this point in time. We don't have resources to move ahead with much right now once 7th and Ingalls Park is completed. We have to wait and see how the finances work out.
And, you know, if I could jump in, if you look at the park, it really doesn't need, you know, a ton of work. In fact, Councilmember Ash McPherson attended one of Kevin Pryor's basketball clinics. And coincidentally, I want to say maybe it was 3 weeks prior, Councilmember, you were saying, you know what? Why don't we, you know, get some folks and go down there and clean it up and, you know, do whatever we can in terms of, you know, some rolling up our sleeves. So I do think some TLC and maybe even Parks has some equipment, you know, that's not being utilized in some other smaller pocket parks that we might be able to utilize there. So, you know, I really don't think it would take a ton of money. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think it would take a ton of money at all.
Yeah. And I guess on this resolution in particular, and I haven't discussed this with anyone, so I wouldn't want to move it now, but I do wonder, that park is just called the 6th Ave Park. So I could imagine a resolution naming that rather than the street. But again, these are discussions that need to include the neighbors and need to be about investing in the community and investing in I mean, as you say as well, you know, I hear Councilman Zalewski's point, but I do think there could be some value in reminding folks of this tragic incident.
Right.
If it can be done in a way that is caring and is backed up with investment in the community rather than just, you know, the concern that we're hearing from the neighborhood is that, which I think is true, that they have several memorials for shootings that have happened in that neighborhood, and yet not a lot of action or a lot of results in terms of improving the conditions that allow for that sort of violence. And so that's where, you know, certainly I love the spirit behind this resolution, and I want to make sure that we can back it up with action.
Well, you know, I not to be critical, it is your district, okay? And you have been there 3 years now, and nothing for nothing. We all fight very, very hard for our districts, for the city as a whole. And quite frankly, this resolution should not have any impact whatsoever on anyone's desire in terms of trying to better a neighborhood. It's ironic that, you know, you've been there 3 years, a resolution comes forth, and all of a sudden, we want to invest in the Pocket Park. Guess what? We should have wanted to invest in that Pocket Park three years ago. We should have wanted to invest 6 years ago. It's up to all of us, you know, to just face the facts. This resolution came forward at the request of a grieving parent. And now all of a sudden, politics and, oh, now we want to fix the park. Now we want to work with the community. Well, guess what? We want to work with every community all the time. And this resolution should not have it, you know, inspired, you know, some park improvements, things like that. And I know I'm a tad emotional about this because I unfortunately see, you know, oh, it's got to be, we got to, you know, listen to the neighbors. We got to listen to the residents. But yet, you know, we really love Terrence and Latoya, and we're so sorry. Why can't we just get beyond this, do it all at once? This is a resolution. It does not mean that the sign is going up tomorrow. This is a statement from us to have the engineer begin the process to work with the community. If you look at the second to last paragraph, it specifically states, or any other location that the engineer we'll have a meeting next week with the community. If it has to be Zoom, we'll Zoom it. And Terrence and Latoya, listen, this just sets it in motion. This does nothing tonight other than setting it in motion. So if the desire, which it was explained to me from the resident that initiated the initial concern, put it in the Berg, put it by his house. Well, guess what? The parents don't want it there. We're making a huge issue out of something so simple that will begin the process to do what we're all saying we support, but yet let's take a pause. Why can't we pass it and work with the community? This is not happening overnight. Just like the plastic bag didn't happen for 6 months, just like a lot of legislation, if the body cams move forward, it's not happening overnight. We are approving to set this in motion. It's going to take time. And the grieving parents know that. I explained it to them. And we can work with the community. This is just the beginning. So if it's supported, why not support it? It does nothing tonight, tomorrow, other than begin that process. I've said my piece. I'm so sorry. Councilmember Zaluski, do you want to make a motion to table?
Council President,
Councilmember Gully?
can I speak before the motion?
Absolutely. There is no motion yet.
Well, I just wanted to try to get in there. Look, I didn't take time to go down and talk to the neighbors, but I did talk to one of the community leaders. And when I mentioned that to him, he brightened up and said he thought it was a great idea because he thought that this could collaboratively bring the neighbors together to protect that area as that sort of sanctuary or shrine for Ashan's death and as that area of violence. He thought it might engage the neighbors to bring them closer together to help to sideline the crime by being more responsive. So I know we want to look at it as maybe they might look at that sign and it's a little sign up there that says Ashan's place to just say that it pains them. But for the couple that it might have said that, there's many others that it will engage and it will raise up to a different level. They're almost community eye watching of that community by the fact that it is a place that they created now as a sanctuary. You know, it is a small thing. I think I'm frustrated that we're making a lot out of this, and I know we have to talk to the neighbors, but you know what? There's 300 people in that neighborhood, and there's probably 100 or so on that block, and we have 2 or 3 people that said it's going to pain them to look at that sign. I don't understand that. You know, for me, I think it's an honor. I expressed also that I thought that it would be better to put it where Ashan lived instead of where he was murdered. But the parents want this as a reminder for the people in the neighborhood to be more strengthful and be more collaborated together and keep their eyes on the road and keep their eyes on the street, because it is now becoming a sort of a sanctuary place that this 11-year-old boy's memory will live on. And you know, it's such a small thing. I'm frustrated to see us make such a big thing out of it. And I know everybody thinks differently. I'm just not that way. I'm just going to say that I think we should pass it forward. It's not that big, and we are meeting the request of the parents of this child, but we're also maybe, and just maybe, and I mean there is that possibility. Maybe we are engaging this community to become closer, become more watchful and more protective of their area, and maybe even a little bit more communicative with administration and people they need to try to end these crimes. So maybe it'll save more than one life. Maybe it won't, I don't know, but I think it's such a small piece for a small sign that says Ashan's place on a pole. I can't see why people in the neighborhood would feel pain through that. You know, each time they look at it, but that's just me. So I just want to get my 2 cents in there. I'm not feeling like I'm going to support tabling on this, and I just want to be clear with everybody.
Thank you, Councilmember Gully.
Council President.
Yep, Councilmember Ash McPherson.
I just want to say, and yes, I was down there a few times, and the few weeks before the murder down there, walking through that park. And you're right, I did say it's a gem of an area. It's a gem of a park. It's really a good area. And to see the blighted houses there was sad. And to see the park the way it was sad. But there was kids in that park playing basketball. There's kids in that park, and I kept on saying, you know, there's a little area, you put a little wading pool or something over there. That this area is just so quaint, and the people that live there are tight. There hasn't been a lot of crime recently that I know of, shootings. We haven't had that recently down there. This, and we all know this was a shock. This was an 11-year-old boy. I feel that, you know, making a spot for his memory, for his parents, and I'm getting emotional, I'm sorry. You know, if they don't want on the sign on the pole, the park is right there. He played in that park, Ashan's park.
you know, just, this is an 11-year-old child. It's affected each and every one of us, and I know it has. So I'm not in favor of tabling this. You know, we pass it forward, we discuss where to go with it. How do we do this as a group? This is something as a community we could do together. And it's putting our foot forward. So I'm not in favor of tabling this, and I would really appreciate everybody to reconsider. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Ash McPherson. Further discussion?
Yeah, Council
Council
President.
President,
Councilmember, Gully, do you have something to add?
I just received a text from Tony Buchanan, who was watching the meeting on YouTube. And he says, please don't look at the short side and look long-term. He says, I believe this will start a commitment. This is a great start for a commitment from the city to the neighborhood. And this will also engage the neighborhood to be committed to the city. Please do not table. Please vote yes for this sign. So I just wanted to read that since he just sent it to me.
Thank you, Councilmember Gully. Councilmember Zaluski.
Yeah, Council President. So we all agree that we want to do something, as we've said. I know you said, well, why don't we pass this and then meet with the neighbors and figure it out? I could also say back to you, why don't we meet with the neighbors and figure it out and then pass it? We could do it one of two different ways. If we want to move forward tonight, then I would recommend that we amend the resolution to include the neighbors and their input in this. We cannot turn our backs on the neighbors who are affected by this time and time again. They've made, we're not using their names, but we've all read what they had to say to us about how this level of violence is affecting their neighborhood. And it's inappropriate for us to move forward on something when you have multiple people that are right there affected by this, having concerns about it. So if we can amend this in a way where we include the neighbors and their concerns, so that we don't move forward without having maybe a neighborhood meeting or something like that, I'd be fine with amending it. Otherwise, then I would just motion to table it. So if we want to have a kind of a quick.
That's fine. Just I would put now therefore be it resolved. We'll put second or after the first whereas. Now therefore be it resolved that as part of the process moving forward, a neighborhood meeting regarding the future siting of Ashland's Place marker be held. And anything else?
Council President?
Yes, Councilmember Gully.
Maybe we could try this. Now therefore be it resolved that the beginning of Old 6th Avenue and intersection Jacob Street shall bear the honorary design of Ashland's Place based through conversations with the local neighbors. Memorial Street sign which shall reflect the honorary designation may be placed at or near the beginning of based upon conversations with the neighborhood.
Yep, that's cool. Councilmember Zaluski, do you like that?
Yeah, I'm not, I don't know how that's reading. I want to make sure it reads correctly, but I just want to include something about neighborhood input, whether that's a neighborhood meeting where we come together to discuss it and allow the neighbors to have input as to where the sign will be located. That's what I'm trying to convey. I wasn't expecting to amend the resolution tonight, so I didn't come prepared with language. So that's why we're kind of workshopping this right now.
Yep, I get it. That's why a finance is good for it. We're in committee. So let's, let's take a little pause and find some appropriate language. Hold
We
on.
could have multiple resolved clauses. We could say that the beginning of Old 6th Avenue at the intersection with Jacob Street shall bear the honorary designation of Ashland's Place. And then hang on.
if I could just input, I don't think we should specify the location without involving the neighbors. So I think that the issue here is, be it further resolved.
There,
that-
yeah, Councilmember Steele, if you look at the last line, or other appropriate location, that covers any, where as approved by the city engineer. That's why we put that in case the park, in case, not knowing where exactly. So, and I want to make it clear, this resolution was never not going to include neighborhood input, just like anything we do. I mean, I'm a little put off. Nobody ever said, okay, do this, just put it over there. I mean, even, Joe Mangapella Way, there was discussion. These things, we all know, you pass a legislation and then much goes into the background to actually implement that legislation.
President,
So-
I have some proposed language.
Okay.
I think we need to recognize that these people are grieving and they are sensitive, and we need to honor and recognize their feelings. And that's all we're trying to do here. We are not casting, dispersions. We are just honoring and acknowledging their grief as well as the family's grief.
Yeah.
Council President,
I think Councilmember Cummings has some proposed language. So let's grab that.
Let's see how this works.
Okay, thank you.
Now, therefore, be it resolved that the city council would like to erect a memorial, park, or street sign commemorating Ashawn Davis, which shall reflect the honorary designation and may be placed near the beginning of Old Sixth or other appropriate designate locations as discussed with neighbors and approved by the city engineer.
Okay, make sure Ishan is, make sure Ishan's place. Are you adding that now therefore be it resolved?
No, this would be to replace the first resolved,
Okay, read that again, please.
basically making it, and I guess, I don't know if it's place or, I guess there was some discussion, and I guess, I don't know whether or not there's a decision on this as to whether or not it would be the street name of place versus a park name or some other type of memorial sign. And I think that's part of what needs to be discussed.
The parents want Ishan's place, where it's placed.
Okay,
You know what I'm saying?
I hear you.
Yep.
Can I ask, could Councilmember Cummings copy that language into the chat so that we could read it? And
Yes,
that way I
that's-
would have it in writing?
That sounds good.
Thank you.
Let
And
me,
for folks out there, this is government working.
and Council President, while Councilman Cummings is doing that,
Councilmember Ash McPherson.
I don't know if Councilman Cummings would like to set up a meeting down there with the neighborhood. And get us down there to
certainly.
That'd
have
be,
this conversation.
yep. That'd be great. Thank you, Councilmember Ash McPherson. We're just, so folks out there know what's going on. We're trying to get some language from Councilmember Cummings in the chat. And he will be sending that in a few seconds. And then I'll read it, and hopefully I think it may work from what it sounds like. Just make sure Councilmember Cummings, Ishan's place. So thank you.
How's that? I just sent it in the chat.
Let's see.
I think it reflects what we've discussed, but
I think that works. Works for me. I'm going to
Get
read.
that.
I'll read it out loud. Now therefore be it resolved that the city council would like to erect a memorial, park, or street sign commemorating Ishan's place, which may be placed at or near the beginning of Old Sixth Avenue or other appropriate locations as discussed with neighbors and approved by the city engineer. that I think works really well, but I will let everyone read it. And I can make a motion to amend this, and very good work, Councilmember Cummings. I'll make a motion to amend with the language I just read. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second, Councilmember Zaluski. On the amendment, is there further discussion?
Council President, I'll just, the part about erecting a park, probably difficult, but I think I understand, I think I understand the intent.
Erect a memorial. Yeah,
The term sign applies to all three.
yes, I got it.
It's a memorial sign, a park sign, or a street sign.
Ah, okay.
I get it. So memorial, park, street, yes. Memorial sign, park sign, street sign. Yep.
Park or street sign. Okay, yep.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Is there discussion on the amendment?
Council President,
Councilmember Ash McPherson?
I'd just like to say thank you to Councilman Cummings and Councilman Zaluski for changing it. So thank you.
Certainly.
Very good. Okay, we have a
Thank you all for
motion.
working with us on it.
Further discussion on the amendment?
Yeah, Council President, I'll just to address Councilperson Ash McPherson. Yeah, I mean, as I said, no one was looking forward to, tabling something that's important to a grieving family. We just wanted to hear the concerns of the residents. I think we've captured it. This is a wonderful compromise, and like you said, this is your legislature at work. So thank you.
Yep. This is how it works. Okay, we want to further discuss the amendment. Okay, all in favor on the amendment? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Did we have an actual motion and second on that amendment?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Yep.
Sorry.
We have an amendment which passed 7-0 on the amended resolution. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Do I have a second?
Second.
Oh, wait, point of order. I can't motion on this because I'm a co-sponsor still.
Yeah.
Can I motion as the council member?
Councilmember Cummings motion. Do we have a second on the
Second.
second? Councilmember Ash McPherson. Just quickly, I want to thank all of you for working together, and this is what it's all about. And I felt I really want to be clear. I felt passionate about this because Terrence, I really feel when he pulled me aside, he definitely had an impact, and I got it. And as Tony Buchanan and many others tonight have said, this will make the community stronger. And we're going to work with the neighborhood, and we're going to work with everyone to make sure that this is something that the neighborhood and the community as a whole, and the city of Troy as a whole, can remember Aisha Davis, but at the same time, hopefully it does bring goodwill, bring healing, and deter some criminal activity, not just there, but throughout the city. So I just want to thank everyone. And all right, further discussion. All in favor on the amended resolution?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? All right, resolution 96 amended passes 7-0. All right, let's go back to ordinance 76. Folks, get ready for another conversation. Ordinance 76, ordinance authorizing settlement of claim to wit City of Troy against Spectrum Northeast LLC, doing business locally as Charter Communications. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration, do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Gully. discussion. I know
Council
lots of
President?
folks have questions. Before we go into discussion, if everyone's cool, I'm going to pass it over to Rick Morrissey, just to, you know, many of us, this is one that a lot of communication has gone back and forth, a lot of questions. This is a long time coming, Rick. So maybe you could just give a brief history, not 15 years of history, but a brief history and where do we go from here and what exactly is this settlement proposal? Thank you.
Well, there are things that happened in the past that I don't know for sure, but as far as I know, this process has been going on for more than 10 years. That Troy and Banks became involved at least in sometime in 2014, I believe. At least that's what the retainer agreement seems to indicate. And that the negotiations originally dealt with Time Warner Cable Company, and then Charter acquired Time Warner Cable, I think in 2017. And after Charter acquired, the negotiations got new force because, frankly, because Charter is very interested in getting a new franchise agreement with the city of Troy. So I know that some of you gave me questions by email over the past couple of days. I've tried to answer those. So I don't know exactly what your questions are now, but I am here to answer whatever I can.
I guess before we, Council President.
Done. I am on mute. My computer is about to die. Councilmember Cummings.
Before we get too deep into the weeds on this contract, I want to, out of respect for time, just ask whether there's anything about this settlement that is time restricted, or whether it would be okay to look to pass it after, say, the October 13th special meeting that we already have scheduled. Because I do have some questions. I don't know that I have any long-term concerns over this, but there's a lot to discuss. And this is another instance where it came to us and is going through both finance and regular all at once here. And so given that, I guess just from a technical standpoint and in the interest of time tonight, is there any reason why we couldn't put off this discussion to a technology committee meeting next week?
If you're asking me, I have concerns about that. And I have concerns that, I mean, Charter knows this is being put on. It's a, you know, I don't know how firm they are, how long they want to do this with us. So the deal is as good as it's going to get. If we try to take it apart now or nitpick it, I'm pretty sure it will just go south. So I'm willing to ask you answer any questions about the deal and try to allay any concerns you have, but I don't think it's time for delay.
Okay.
Councilmember Cummings, are you recommending, are you making a motion or no?
Well, I mean, it sounds like you're saying that a 2-week delay could be enough to blow up these negotiations?
Yes.
Okay, then I guess we'll have to get into it tonight. Sorry, everyone.
Nope.
Hey, that's what we're here for. Listen, we make big bucks. Okay.
Council President.
Yes, Councilmember, before we move along, Councilmember Cummings still does have the floor. Councilmember Cummings.
Yeah, so I guess my biggest concern is the seeming setup of this contract, where we, by entering into this contract, create some strange financial incentives, both for ourselves and for Spectrum or Charter Communications, around the negotiation of a future franchise agreement that it seems harms our leverage in those negotiations. In particular, if we are not able to come to an agreement within 90 days, according to this agreement, then any basically the entirety of these back fees could be recovered from our residents rather than from Charter, which in effect would mean
this $400,000 comes out of the pockets of our residents, again, rather than Charter Communications. And so I do want to make, it sounds like you've done some good negotiation on that front. But I want to make sure that we have a strong sense that we'll be able to hit that deadline and that, and that this doesn't create sort of backwards incentives where Charter could delay in order to not have to pay that money going forward.
Good questions, Rick.
Well, council member, I sent you an email shortly before the council meeting. I don't know if you received it or read it, but I did try to answer that question to the best of my ability. The agreement as originally proposed by Charter with, well, there's been originally proposed is sort of a.
Sure, most recently.
The most recent original proposal had the payment coming after a new franchise agreement was negotiated. That would have been a payment of $431,000. So Charter is very interested in the new franchise agreement, and it wanted to have that club holding over us, or that incentive for us to negotiate an agreement. In addition, it wanted to pass through all the settlement fees to the ratepayers. That sounds odd, and it sounded odd to me at first, but you have to realize that the settlement here is essentially a refund or a reimbursement of underpaid franchise fees that they should have paid us, but they did not, and Time Warner Cable did not. And franchise fees are passed through every month in your cable bill. Every cable company in the United States does that. The question is of whether or not it can be recognized as gross revenue. They didn't used to recognize it as gross revenue. We basically, now they do. And as by recognize it gross revenue, believe it or not, we charge 5%, which is our cable franchise fee on their gross revenues. But
okay, so
let me finish if you would.
Yeah.
What I was going to say. So what we negotiated was an upfront payment, which does not have any strings attached to it, of half the settlement amount, and a 90-day window during which, if we negotiate a contract, the settlement Charter will not make an attempt to pass through the settlement fees. If we do not negotiate it, Charter reserves its legal rights. Now, whether it ultimately would or would not, that might depend on the state of negotiations. That could depend on a lot of things. But Charter, frankly, Charter wants an agreement with the city of Troy for reasons that are more intangible than economic. They look better on paper to investors if they have solid franchise agreements, as opposed to operating in the city of Troy with no franchise agreement since about 1988. So
okay,
I don't know if that allays any of your concerns, but the incentive to Charter is not to, it really is not to blow up a deal. However, we may make demands upon them that they don't want to honor, and I don't know whether, or that they would not agree to. So I think it's a matter of both parties being reasonable, because we have incentive now to get it done in a frame of time also.
Okay, that makes sense. I guess, can you, just to dive into that issue of back franchise payments, was the issue that they then actually didn't bill our residents for the somewhere between 400,000 and $1 million in franchise payments, and therefore didn't send it to us? Or did our residents get billed for those payments and we didn't get that passed through?
There are several components to this, but basically there's two main components. One is we allege that there were about 1,900 households that were jurisdictionally miscoded, meaning that they didn't count them as Troy residents. Charter never conceded that, but that was part of our claim for monies due. In other words, they should have been crediting all the revenues they got from those residents to the gross revenues from which our franchise fee would be figured on. Is that do you understand that? Okay. And then the other component are the various revenues that Charter collects. Charter collects money for installation. Charter collects franchise fees from our residents. Passes through those franchise fees, but it collects them as revenue. Charter collects home shopping network fees. Charter collects, there are others I don't remember, and I left my cheat sheet of notes at the office, so I'm apologizing for that. But there were a number of components that we call non-subscriber revenue. They're from subscribers to Charter, but they're just different components of things that they did not include in their gross revenues. They have since changed their accounting practices, and at least we have evidence now that at least from 1/1/19, they do include them now. Troy and Banks claims all the credit for that, but we had a little dispute about the fee, but anyways, that's not part of their contract with us. So. Okay, so that's where, so the monies come from the underpayments of franchise fees to us through these different sources. Why is he mute?
Oh,
Council-
Councilmember Cummings, you're on mute.
Thank you, sorry.
Problem.
So well, I guess the miscoded residents are a complicated problem. I assume then that the amount that Time Warner at the time billed our residents for the franchise fee did not include those things that they're not paying us for. So there is, a significant, if they had been billing in the way that we think they should have been billing, they would have billed our residents more.
I believe that is correct. I don't think that they would be that brazen as to charge a greater franchise fee than they were actually paying. The franchise fee is generally a separate line on the bill, and it's a pass through.
Okay. Then I guess I'd just encourage some. I don't know if you have the report from the Cable Franchise Working Group that happened years ago, but certainly encourage involvement from the public in the negotiations to whatever degree is possible. But certainly, I'm all right with moving forward with this for now, if it's as urgent as it sounds.
But I do not have a copy of that report, and as I said in one of my emails to all of you, that I do not even have a decent account of how a prior franchise agreement was voted down. And if any of you have any working knowledge of that history and would share it with me, I would greatly appreciate it. Or that report, I would also greatly appreciate, because and your own specific concerns about a future franchise agreement with, because I can't make a proposal if I don't know what it is. Okay.
The biggest totally unrelated thing that I will put a plug in for is some requirement for them to clean up their lines once they're not being used. We have massive rat's nests of old cable lines all over the city. I just cleared a very large pile of them off of my own building, but I don't know to what degree that it's possible to encourage them to clean up after themselves on that front. Otherwise, I'll defer to Councilman Zalewski, who was on the council at the time, for the rest of that discussion.
Actually, I saw Councilmember Zalewski take his mute off immediately, and he was here. And in 2011, I believe there was a proposal in front of the council, but it was voted down, and Councilmember Zalewski proposed a resolution and task force or working group. So I'll hand it off. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Council President. So actually, the story goes back even further than that. Back in 2001, between 2001 2004, the city had hired a cable franchise negotiator. Her name was Sue Buskey from the Buskey Group. And I actually, it's funny, as Councilman Cummings was speaking, I was looking in my files to see what I still had. And I actually have some documents from that period. Now, I was not on the council back in 01 to 04. I joined in 08, but I was able to pull some of those documents when the agreement came up for a council vote in 2011. In 2011, the city's administration negotiated. The city, first of all, did not use a cable franchise negotiator in 2011 as they had done in previous years. So the city, this was a direct negotiation between the city and at the time Time Warner Cable. It was a reasonable agreement, but the community at large, especially those people that are involved in media, had some reservations about moving forward with the agreement at the time. I think the agreement was a $200,000 payment to the city of Troy, maybe $80,000 in going towards some type of digital studio, and $70,000 in something else, maybe some type of multimedia or something like that.
Education channel, I believe, government education program.
No, that was not part of it. That was not part of it. So that's what we call PEG, P-E-G, which is Public Education and Government. And that's what, so you're kind of fast forwarding a little bit, but the community at large wanted to see PEG access, and the agreement that the administration at the time came up with did not offer PEG access. So the council at the time voted that down and created the Time Warner Cable Franchise Working Group. And that's the legislation that you probably saw today. All of us probably saw that today, that City Clerk Mara Drogan pulled out. And that working group studied franchise agreements in other municipalities, including Albany and Schenectady, and determined that Troy deserved our fair share, meaning that Troy should also have PEG access, Public Educational Government access, basically our own set of channels where we could produce content for the public. So the working group forwarded its determinations to the city council, and that's what actually caused the city council to vote down the franchise agreement at the time. Unfortunately, and hindsight's wonderful, right? But unfortunately, future administrations, and in this case it would have been Mayor Lou Rosamilia and his administration, could not make enough progress on that franchise agreement going forward. And now we have Mayor Madden's administration who, is making progress on this agreement. So to answer your question, Rick, regarding documentation in the past, I have a bunch of stuff, PDFs and Word documents, both from the Buskey Group, because when the 2011 working group started doing its research, they went back and found all the documents that the Buskey Group had produced in 2001, 2002, et cetera. I have a bunch of those documents, and I'd be happy to make them available. But the bottom line is that they were estimating at the time that that the city of Troy was losing out on about $100,000 a year in PEG access, and the whole period of time that they were looking at was 9 years. The document that I was just looking at says a conservative estimate of $900,000 over 9 years was being lost by the city of Troy. I'm not a cable franchise negotiator. I don't know what the proper value of a franchise agreement is or what we should truly be seeking, but I do know that at the time in 2011, people that are far more educated in this in the realm of multimedia and cable franchises, people that know a lot more than I do, said that we were not getting our fair share from Time Warner. So that takes us to today, where we finally have an agreement in front of us, and we'll have to determine if it's a fair agreement for the city of Troy. that's, I guess, what we're voting on today, but I can certainly make available a bunch of documentation from the past that might help, shed some light on this whole process. Now, the last thing I'll say is back in 2001, 2002, the city did go through, or at least went through some part of the process of what's known as cable franchise revocation. And cable franchise revocation is when a community when basically you reach an impasse with the cable company, and then the municipality has to decide, well, what are we going to do? Do we accept what they're giving us, or do we have to really play hardball? In this case, the city started going through this process of effectively revoking the franchise for Time Warner. And there's a whole process behind it. I can't remember all of it. I know there's petitions involved and study groups and all of that. But, that's certainly, the city does have the final say as to whether Charter has the right to continue operating within its boundaries. And, that's this whole revocation process. Now, we're talking almost 20 years have gone by since that original since the Buskey Group was researching all of this. Laws may have changed along the way. Technology certainly has changed. There's many things could have changed. So, I'll make these documents available, but how applicable they would be to the current state of affairs, I have no idea. But I'm happy to make that available. Anyway, that's just a little background on what got us to this point. And we'll see where we go from here.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Zaluski. And Rick, did you want to follow up any questions, or you could do that offline, or anything Councilmember Zaluski said before we open it up to other members?
To respond a little bit to what Council, maybe, I don't know if it appears that federal law governs our franchise fee, and that the maximum allowable is 5% of the cable company's gross revenues. And so a lot depends on what the revenues are. I understand that cable companies have been under a lot of competitive pressure in the past few years because people are converting to other sources for entertainment. And but they are, they want to improve their line so they can handle high-speed data and compete with the likes of Netflix and things like that, things that run on the internet, I guess, or however, over Wi-Fi, maybe. As far as I can trace the history of the underpayment, it appears that there was an underpayment of about $1 million that I claimed in a cumulative underpayment of $1 million in or about 2015. And shortly after that, the city reduced its claim to about $700,000 because for whatever the administration at the time thought, it appears that they agreed with someone that certain elements should not properly be included in the gross revenues. So that happened sometime in the neighborhood of 2015, 2016. And thereafter, the underpayment climbed to where the most recent demand that I saw from the city in 2019 was about $960,000 or something like that, which I say I don't have my notes in front of me. And so the settlement offers from the cable companies ranged from, at one point way back in 2011, I guess there was that $200,000 offer. Then at some point when Charter came in, their initial offer was $43,000. That gradually went up to $100,000 and then to $340,000. And the current number is a split between whatever the city was demanding, I think 625 and the 340, or no, it was 500 something that the city was demanding at that point. So that's how that number was arrived at. I recommend it. I think it's probably a reasonable settlement given the legal weaknesses of our case. We've lost claims to certain revenues because of the expiration of the statute of limitations on some of them. We have not incurred huge attorney's fees, which we probably would if we were going to pursue the case legally further. The settlement is pretty close to 45, 46 cents on the dollar, I think. And the fee of Troy and Banks is less than their usual fee, much less than they want. I'll tell you right now. And I consider it reasonable under all the circumstances. Plus, they will assist us in negotiating a new agreement with, or they have been assisting us and will continue to do so, to negotiate the new agreement with Charter. And I think they have incentive to do so because I'm not giving them the second part of their fee until we get the second payment. So, and that is free. There's no extra charge for that. And they are experts. Mr. Lewis, who we dealt with primarily, was employed in the cable industry for 15 years.
Great.
On the finance end.
I did look at their portfolio. Their clientele is quite some big companies. Further discussion, I know Councilmember Cummings wants to go, but before he goes again, there may be other members.
I just have a quick follow-up on trying.
Council President.
Councilmember Gully, and we'll come back, I promise. Just keep that thought, Councilmember Cummings. Councilmember Gully, you're on mute. There you go.
Rick, just a couple questions. This thing has just dragged behind us for years. As we come to a finality on the debt that's owed, what process do we have in line to make sure that we keep up to date on this and we're actually taken care of properly by Charter as we move forward on the agreement? And it's very difficult. I mean, I always have a hard time creating a settlement based on a future agreement that we don't have in front of us, because we're like saying, hey, buy it now and I'll talk to you about it later. And I'm a little cautioned by that, but I have a lot of respect for you and trust that if you tell us it's the right deal, that we can move forward on this. But how can we one, make sure that we're engaged properly in this future contract? And will there be any safeguards in there or penalties? And I would hope you would put some type of penalty in that contract if there is a situation where a non-payment occurs again, that we would have some additional relief there if they decide not to go forward. So that would be my question.
Well, the terms of the contract are not fully negotiated yet, but I foresee 3 safeguards. At least one, we already have, Troy and Banks has already solicited reports from Charter which indicate that they are including in gross revenues the items that were already that have been in dispute. So they're including franchise fee in gross revenues. They're including installation fees. They're including the things that we said they should include in gross revenues so that we can get a full 5%. And we have reports dating back right now to January 1st, 2019, which show that they have done that for the 18 months since then. The second one is in the agreement itself. We will negotiate, frankly, my preference would just be, say, 5% of all revenues. But typically these agreements start going out and specifying which kind of revenues. And so you're damned if you do, if you're damned if you don't sometimes. But we will have an agreement that specifies that they will include those disputed items in their revenues from now on, or as they compute our fee. And lastly, the agreement should specify that they provide us with backup, so that periodically we could send it to a consultant, or if someone in Andy's office develops an expertise to review those things and see that that the money that they claim they owe us matches the revenues that they're actually getting.
Thank you, Rick. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Councilmember Gully, Councilmember Cummings, and then we'll open it up to others.
Just a quick follow-up on the Troy Banks. Am I right? Seems like what you're saying is their only fees are the portion of this. They're not paid any sort of retainer or other fee in addition to.
That's correct. I think as I stated in the email, I do have that note. Their actual fee is $145,000, $208.85.
Great. And that's inclusive of both their help negotiating the contract as well as the settlement.
That's correct.
Great. Thank you so much.
Further discussion?
Council President,
Yep, Councilmember Zaluski.
the last remark I want to make, we are, like I said, 20 years ago, this started in the city of Troy, and probably even before that. We're in a different place today than we were even just 5 years ago, never mind 10 years ago and 20 years ago. PEG access. People don't really talk about it much anymore, at least not, what I'm hearing from folks in the media, because multimedia has been revolutionized by things like YouTube that people are watching us on right now. So it used to be you would tune into channel 14 or channel 11 or whatever to watch your city council meetings. Now you tune into YouTube, you use the internet. As Rick, you said, things are different now. A lot of people are cutting the cable, as they say, and moving to, streaming platforms. So, the need to negotiate these other forms of benefit to the city is probably not really there, because we probably couldn't even, take advantage of them to the extent that we might have liked to just a few years ago. So yeah, I'm inclined, based on, everything I've heard tonight and what I've read in the agreement, that I think this is good for the city of Troy, and we should probably move forward. Thank you.
Further discussion? Rick, I think the big thing for me, the settlement, obviously it's something that has just been lingering way too long. I wasn't here back in the day when it began, but I was here in the 90s when I was in my teens on the council at that time as a district council member. And I remember, Time Warner used to actually air our council meetings and tape them, etc. We had a great partnership. Moving forward, I think the one thing that concerns me on this is not having the contract and not knowing maybe, my concern, I did email you and I thank you for answering so many questions I had. But the big thing, the 90 days, here we are, several years, obviously, where, unfortunately 2011, it got killed by the council at that time. Now we're talking, okay, we approved the settlement tonight, and then we're talking, when does the clock start ticking for the 90 days? That's my question. And more importantly, will we be able to have that proposed contract? Because obviously we're going to have to approve that contract to authorize the mayor, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. And what's the time frame? Because obviously in 2011, as Councilmember Zaluski said, that working group, a big chunk of that, and looking at some notes from that time period in the resolution, was to get more public input. So, approving this 90 days, it's ambitious. If we don't do it in 90 days, Spectrum, Charter, whatever is able to bill, is that the city of Troy taxpayers or just customers? And so I'm really hung up more.
Uh-oh. Council President, you froze.
I can finish that sentence.
It's right when she said, I'm hung up, and then she kind of hung up.
She's really hung up.
On the 90 day. All right. Oh, I'm back. My son must be on 3 devices upstairs. And it says your internet connection is unstable. And guess who my internet is with? Spectrum. There we go. Okay, so I'm not sure where I froze, and hopefully Spectrum does not interfere here. But quickly,
Uh-oh.
90 days is ambition. Put is, critical. Maybe you could fill us in, Rick, on some of those questions, and I hope I projected, and I hope this came across. If not, I'll repeat them.
Well, he froze twice, but
I'm sorry.
it's okay. I'm a little bit confused by the question. The 90 days was, the result of getting an upfront payment, essentially, and getting them to back off their right to charge their customers, not the taxpayers, their customers,
Okay.
For franchise fees. So what they are paying us are franchise fees they should have paid, and which, it's arguable at least that they have a right to pass them through. What this contract does is it takes away that right for 90 days for certain. And also it doesn't require that they pass them through afterwards. It gives them the right to attempt to do that. But we might be at such a stage in negotiations where it just might be a matter of the council holding public hearings, or it just might be a matter of, a few more agreements to a few terms where we could say to them, we're very close. You do not want to sink the deal now by, we need to agree to an extender or something like that. So, I mean, those are possibilities,
Okay.
but it is ambitious. I agree with you, and it has been kicking around for many years. I would also ask that each of you ask yourselves, if we don't do it, what do we do?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like there are a lot of options. And frankly, I think that the cable franchise is decreasing in value before our eyes. So those are concerns of mine.
Yep, fair enough. With Netflix, Prime, you got Apple TV, totally agree. My big last question is the public input. So you do see, my fear is we're going to get this, the 87th day and, 90 days, here you go, guys, boom, boom. I really want to make a plea, and I think on behalf of all of us in terms of the public input.
And I recognize that, and I think that, I will do everything in my power to try to get it to you in a reasonable time so that you have time to take public input, because this is something that really does concern the citizens and the taxpayers and the ratepayers. And I'm sure they may want to, have input.
Yep, perfect. Further
Council
discussion?
President,
Yes, Councilmember Cummings.
is there any potential for input and or public discussion before the finalized agreement with them is in place, as maybe a way to preload some of that public input in your negotiating process? Maybe
I'm just trying to think of the mechanism. What you're thinking of. Would you like to hold public hearings?
I mean, for example, we could hold a technology committee meeting and just as a sort of a workshop to discuss the franchise agreement and the things that, for example, it sounds like Councilman Zalewski is pointing out that public access is probably less necessary than it once was. But I'd like to hear public comment on that. Before
I don't
we
think
make
there's
that
anything
call.
that prevents you from scheduling a technology subcommittee meeting and asking for public comment. And I will certainly listen to everything you have.
Great.
As I said in my other emails, I think that, if any of you want something, or if you have ideas about what should be in an agreement, I'm new to this. I am not an expert. I know basic contract law, and I know, I know a few things, I guess, but what I have been speaking about tonight, I just learned in the past, couple months. I've
Understood.
never heard of it before. I've never had cable, except, well, one time I lived in a place that had cable, so.
Okay.
Okay,
Understood. Thank you so much. I think it's worth moving forward with this for now, and certainly involving the public in as quickly as possible. So thank you. That's great.
And, I strongly agree to have a science and technology committee meeting, Councilmember Cummings. Maybe even before your first meeting at the budget.
We'll see. I am no longer the chair of that committee,
Oh,
unfortunately.
that's right, Councilmember.
But
took the reins. Okay.
But yes, we've talked about it, and I think it certainly makes sense to
Good.
involve folks.
Of course, if Charter is listening into the meeting and then we just had our attorney say, well, I'm not really an expert on this, now we're screwed.
I have consultants who are experts.
Understood.
Oh,
We
boy.
can tell they're listening in due to the targeted glitches.
I am noticing, and believe me, I texted my son to get his 3 devices off of the internet. He said, I'm not even home, I'm at Target. So we are definitely being sabotaged. Okay, further.
Dirty satire, no defamation intended, I assume. No.
Exactly, sorry. Further discussion? Okay, I'm going to take a slow roll. Councilmember Gully.
Yes.
Councilmember Ash McPherson.
Yes.
Councilmember Steele.
Aye.
Councilmember Cummings.
Yes.
Councilmember Zaluski.
Aye.
Councilmember McDermott.
Yes.
Council President Mantello, aye. 7-0, ordinance 76 carries. All items this evening will be going to the regular meeting. We already did resolution 96, resolution 97, resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Eclipse Network Solutions for the purchase, installation, and maintenance of city surveillance cameras. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration, do I have a motion?
Motion?
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski, do I have a second?
Second.
Second, we have a tie. I'm going to give it to Councilmember McDermott as Public Safety Chair. Discussion, I know a lot of work has gone into this, so many of us have been working on this for quite a while. If you don't mind, on the discussion, I'd just like to lead it in, when myself and a couple of council members found out, I believe Councilmember Ash McPherson had called me, but I was surprised because there was a stabbing over on 3rd Street by the Dunkin' Donuts, and we were apprised that the camera wasn't working where the stabbing had taken place. And Nick Laviano was the PBA president, and he was the one that said, geez, these cameras are sometimes work, sometimes don't work. They work intermittently. So myself and the council bipartisan last year, we had gotten the chief at a couple meetings. We had to appropriate monies. We worked with the mayor to do that. We were able to get a state grant. The RFP went out early this year, and unfortunately COVID delayed getting that RFP back. So saying that, a couple things. Do I feel that city surveillance cameras are the panacea? Absolutely not. They're a piece of the puzzle, much like, what we're talking about tonight and many of the projects that many of us are working on. But saying that they do provide the police, and I know Captain Barker's with us, clues, they provide evidence, whether it be, somebody's shoe, whether it be a license plate, you name it. So they are a piece of that puzzle, and they also provide a sense of security to that particular neighborhood. So I'm really thrilled that we finally tonight, we're hopefully going to approve a vendor, Eclipse Network Solutions, and basically the 120 or so cameras. They will maintain, install, purchase, you name it. And I am just super pleased. I know that this is a priority of Chief Owens, Councilmember Ashley McPherson, so many others, all of us. And I just really want to give everyone a pat on the back. And I know it's a long time coming, but once again, I want to make it clear because a lot of people out there, especially the public, okay, Glennon 7th, that camera is not working. Well, guess what? It might work in the morning and then might not work that evening. So it's all a software issue, much like I froze tonight. Technology is moving fast, and we know that from Councilmember Zaluski. And saying that we need to better our technology, and this is a step in the right direction. Long term, I'd like to see more cameras. Also, I talked to the chief and the mayor the other night, SafeCam. I'd like to reinvigorate that program where folks who have the Ring, and a lot of folks have surveillance doorbells out there now, you name it. Let's get them to register their private security system or Ring with the police. So I'd like to see that reinvigorated and get folks to register their private cameras. And, saying that this is a partnership, this is everyone working together, and it's all about trying to keep our neighborhood safe. So I am really thrilled. This is something that we've seen from day one to today, and this is a step in the right direction. And I would like to see, as Councilmember Gully mentioned, some mobile cameras, portable, where we can move them hotspot to hotspot. I'm hoping that will be a part of the short term, and long term, I'll have to find some more funding for more cameras. So saying that, I just want to say kudos to everybody. Sorry.
Mr. President?
Yes, Councilmember Cummings.
Yeah, I want to second your statements about the importance of this program and the urgency of it. Certainly, we've been looking for this for a long time and are glad to see it moving forward. I don't know if I missed a document or what, but it did seem like the contract itself just sort of refers to the bid documents. So I was wondering if we could get a little bit of a detail on what exactly we're purchasing. Obviously 120 cameras. Do we have a megapixel range? Do we have some details on the software backing it up, how that footage is going to be stored and all that someone could maybe brief us on?
Andy or Captain Barker, Mayor?
I can take some of that on our point.
Great.
I'll just pull it out of the bids in front of me. For Eclipse, the design is going to be to sit down with our current or our past vendor and whatever this new vendor may be, and first to visit all these intersections, do the site visit, because some of these cameras, the camera itself still works or still has the ability to work. It's either an internal storage issue or power issue or different things at each intersection. So just to determine at each site what we can keep. A major portion of that is going to be to redo all the networking at each of the sites, because these cameras that still exist or can still be used, we'll keep them at that intersection, replace all the networking so that we can kind of see this money go as far as possible. And then if there's extra money to be had, then we'll either refresh cameras at already existing intersections or then spider web out north or south. The cameras are all going to be access cameras. I'm going to say, then come back to the video management system will be, at this point, potentially access camera state.
That's what
So were there other bids as well? Was this the only qualifying bid, or were there other bidders as well?
There's other bidders, 5 in total, I believe. There was one lower bid, but it didn't qualify for the technology included, or really the. I'll be honest, I don't know. Certainly, Mr. Morrissey, stop me if I can't say any of it, but the lower bid did not address any of the things we had in the RFP, which is kind of a low bid and said, we're going to handle one thing about your server.
Okay, so I guess I'm a little confused about the structure. The bid is essentially to both do an assessment of our current technology and upgrade sort of as needed, and do as much as possible within this sort of $95,000 threshold. Not necessarily to do a specific amount of work. So if they find that a bunch of the cameras work fine and they just need no new network connections, is the excess automatically able to be applied to additional cameras? Or would we have to go back out to bid and just end up paying less on this? How would that work to expand within this bid?
I would defer to Andy on it, but my understanding is that anything additional would then go towards the longevity of the system, so long-term maintenance of it, and then adding cameras or refreshing. So the cameras that we currently have are barely 720p, and none are pan-tilt zoom. Certainly anything is better than the kind of the mismatch that we have currently. But if we can refresh certain intersections, namely our busier intersections, with newer cameras like a multi-sensor camera in one unit to cover all those angles instead of like 4 separate cameras in the intersection, then that would be one of our moves. Additionally, beginning to move out from that downtown core, because that's where our best networking is, up to the north end, or really also to south, because we never really made it very far south.
Gotcha. But so essentially what we're signing here is a contract with a company to just come in and work with us on a site by site basis to do whatever we can do to make it better. There's not the bid itself doesn't outline every camera that needs upgrade, every instance. That'll be part of the actual implementation.
Exactly. At the very least, the networking at each intersection is going to have to be replaced. But if we find that we have a usable camera, then we'll begin by using that camera so we can determine if we want to add more to certain areas or just refresh at a certain intersection.
Okay. Well, it's a long time coming, certainly. Thank you for your work on it.
Beautiful. Further discussion?
Council President?
Yes, Councilmember Zaluski.
For Captain Barker, since you mentioned cameras going south, I know we traditionally have not had a bunch, crossing down through Little Italy into the Osgood neighborhoods, but I'm sure we've had some increased, criminal activity in those areas. So I would definitely like to push to, get a few down in that area as well, please.
Absolutely. So we're blessed to have people on the council who understand the technology. And I caught a little bit of the public safety meeting. I'll go back and watch the rest of it. But on the topic of that, when we try to assign cameras to specific locations that would really jump further than our internal core, to start to get into that Little Italy, that's going to be fairly easy because we're close to our downtown core. When we originally did maybe 112 and 5, or even let's talk 7th and Glen, that mobile camera solution is really what we're going to be looking at. During the larger protest response in early June, we were able to work along with the Albany County Sheriff's Office, made a mobile video trailer that was built out pretty rugged, and it included onboard storage for the camera, cellular offload, some solar and some batteries. And it's really in the longer scheme of things, not a very expensive solution. And that would then allow us to kind of take care of some of those hotspots, because the hotspots are going to move potentially either as the enforcement increases or as we place the cameras there. And so that'll be kind of tandem with this company. We modeled it after a lot of the other local agencies. We've seen some really successful deployment and some successful projects out of this specific vendor for some localities close to us. So we're pretty excited about it. But just to piggyback off some of that public safety meeting, that's how we would target the hotspot issue.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Captain. Further discussion?
Sorry, Council President.
Yeah, Councilman.
I guess I didn't quite get an answer on the services side. Does this bid include the servers and storage? Is that a cloud solution or a local solution? Or is this just the technology to get the footage back to us and we're still in charge of all the storage?
That includes server and storage. It'll be a local solution for city cams. At this point, it's spec'd as an Axis server. I believe it's S1148, but I can get it for you. It's in the bid here. Yep, S1148. And then we'll determine based on number of cameras, the size of that server. But it's going to be at this point in talking with Quinn and the people at BIS, it'll be a local server, but it'll be separate from our current city network to keep it totally separate.
Great, good. And I assume if we upgrade some of our cameras beyond 720, it'll have to be a significantly larger server.
Yeah.
So that's good. Thank you. I guess one question I know some municipalities have been dealing with is facial recognition technology, the pros and cons of it. We don't have any implementation of that in our cameras. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir. There's no analytics on the back end. This is simply going to be recording. No any type of analytics, no license plate analytics,
reading.
No facial recognition. It is simply at this point, a fixed camera system. So even if we restore connection to all the existing cameras, there won't be any pan tilt zoom, but that would be the only option we would really be looking at. If there's different areas, I've talked with the city engineering department about the new marina, Riverfront Park. We'd like to restore some cameras too. We've talked to some people, the planning department of the 7th and Ingalls, Old 6th Ave Park, up on 10th Street. So the only thing different we maybe do up there is some pan tilt zoom on some sort of scheduled tour, since we don't always have somebody in front of the cameras. But no, there will be no analytics.
Great, thank you.
Further discussion? Okay, thank you, Captain Barker, very thorough. If there's no further discussion, I'm going to just do a motion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, great job, everyone. And Mayor, thank you again for working with us on this one. Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Captain Barker. Bear with me. All right, resolution 98. This resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a master services and purchasing agreement with Axon Enterprises, Inc. for the purpose of supplying and maintaining body-worn cameras and tasers for Troy police officers. Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration, do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Ash McPherson. This is to authorize the mayor to go into a contract for the body cams and tasers. Discussion. Okay. No discussion. Councilmember Cummings, you weren't on mute, so do you have?
I know, I have lots of discussion. I'm trying to decide whether to, let's see, was there anything critical? Yeah, the first, I have a couple questions.
Okay,
Council President.
that's okay. Councilmember Cummings.
First is on data portability. The ordinance the contract as written definitely says that the data is owned by the city, which is good. But I was just wondering whether someone could give a outline of what the migration process would be like. Are there technical hurdles where it would actually be difficult to migrate the data? Should we need to in the future with a new supplier, or is it a relatively straightforward process?
Great question, because that was a major part of the research, because we've seen other agencies, especially early on in body cam programs, get crippled by that, either proprietary data or just not having the ownership of it. So that was a major part of it. For the current vendor, if we were to move forward with Axon, we own the data. The migration would be either we could download it off, which would obviously, depending on the amount of data,
take a while.
We'd need to make sure we're playing well with Charter, or they would, we have commitments for them, they would ship it in external drives. We would have to ensure at that point that it's being protected, obviously through that shipping, but it would come out of Arizona.
Okay, understood. Let's see. Are we buying the Axon Body 3 cameras with Wi-Fi positioning?
So we are buying the body 3 cameras. However, we don't have, Chief Owens had forwarded your question to me. Excuse me. And we don't have that. We're not going to pay extra for that capability. And even when we receive it, I've since passed that question along to the vendor. I have the ability, or any executive of the agency here has the ability to turn any of that sort of data collection off from the unit.
Great, thank you. Because certainly pulling all the Wi-Fi data from everywhere our officers goes could theoretically create privacy concerns for our residents, but it sounds like we're not going to be doing that, so that's good. Let's see. Are there any changes to our existing arrangement for the actual tasers within this contract, or is it, the contract is on both the tasers and the cameras, but my understanding is that the taser side of the contract is more longstanding and not being changed. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, I don't understand our use of the tasers, or my reading of it, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that this contract covers both purchase and upgrade and maintenance, etc., of Taser brand or Axon brand cameras, as well as tasers, like is that, first of all, is that correct? And second of all, is there anything we're doing with this contract that changes our existing purchase or management agreement for the tasers themselves? So separate from the cameras, part of that officer safety plan, which is the core pricing model they gave, it comes with a Taser 7. So we're moving from a Taser X26P, and forgive me for some of the details because I don't run the Taser program anymore, but we're moving from an X26P, which has been kind of outdated or not supported for some time now. We're skipping a few renditions because they attempted to make a move several years ago at the agency that just didn't go through, now to the current Taser 7. And so separate from our camera project, the Taser instructors are overseeing a transition to the Taser 7.
Okay, I saw a reference somewhere in there in the data about a Taser cam. Is there a camera included in the Taser itself, or is that a Taser brand camera, or a totally separate thing that we're not buying?
So we're not buying it. And earlier, before Axon did any, and once again, this is kind of out of my area, but way years ago, before Axon developed the body cam, they developed a camera that was built into the Taser. It never really went anywhere, and we never entertained it. So this would be separate. The body cams with the upgraded Taser, and the reason for kind of doing them together would be they activate, if a Taser is deployed and an officer does not activate his camera, then the Taser then activates the camera and turns the camera on.
Gotcha. So is that something that's not part of what we have? So?
That the Taser cam is not, there is no camera affixed to the new Taser, but by moving from the X26P Taser to a Taser 7, that Taser 7 activates the officer's body.
Oh, gotcha. Sorry. Understood.
So, this is years in the making, so I've had some time with information.
Great. Are there similar, are there holsters that would activate the camera with a gun deployment as well?
So part of that larger package, we don't change our holsters, but they'll put a small device on the outside or the exterior of a holster that when it sees that, or when it senses that firearms deployed, then it activates the camera. Important to note was, along with that training when we referenced earlier, where we're going to train and then immediately hopefully deploy these cameras, these officers are going to be trained to activate the camera with the push of a button. Any of those external deployments, which in our case will only be a Taser being deployed or a firearm being deployed, that repetitive activation does not then turn off the camera. The camera remains on.
And you can an officer deactivate a camera with a Taser or a firearm deployed?
Can an officer manually deactivate a camera? Oh, absolutely. I mean, they can turn off a camera at any point by the physical device. Sure. It's going to be allowed by policy would certainly be another part of the program, but they can at any time, these things can, they can always be turned off.
Okay. So that goes to our policy discussion, but I'll stay on the contract for now. Let's see. I don't know if anyone else has questions while I'm looking, but.
Okay, well, Councilmember Cummings is looking. Does anyone else have questions?
Am I able to respond to Councilman Gully's earlier inquiry.
Absolutely, Captain Walker. Thank
So
you.
during our last break of your other discussions, I reached out to Axon. We can, after payment, we can delay delivery as long as it's set within 2020. So, and that would then delay that 5-year timer. As long as we accept delivery within 2020, then that would then start the timer from that 5-year replacement and replenishment of it.
Great.
Thank you, Captain Barker. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thanks, Captain. Councilmember Cummings?
No, I think that answers most of my questions on that for now.
Okay.
Yeah. I guess I'll still advocate for a brief postponement of this at the special to allow some of that backup to be provided. It doesn't sound like that would delay the process significantly. But I'm again happy to move it through finance to help
Motion?
that process move forward.
Are you making a motion or?
I'm signaling that I will be making a motion at our special, but I'm happy to move it forward
Regular.
through this finance.
Yeah, tonight's the regular.
Sure. Feels like a special because we're doing it all at once.
Okay, we have a motion, second, further discussion. All right, we'll take a slow roll. Councilmember Gully,
Yes.
Councilmember Ash McPherson,
Yes.
Councilmember Steele,
I-
Councilmember Cummings,
Yes.
Councilmember Zaluski,
Aye.
Councilmember McDermott,
Yes.
Council President Mantello, aye. We have 7-0. All in favor, and that, bear with me. All right. That completes our finance meeting this evening. We will go right into a regular before we adjourn. I'd like to get a consensus, or do you want a 2 to 3 minute potty break?
3-minute
Council
break.
President,
Council,
Council
member-
President,
yes.
I was texted, I had a person that was waiting in line to speak, and then they had to go off because their phone died, so that I've got to text them back and now tell them to get back on because they want to speak before the regular.
Can they wait till the regular? Because that'll be right at the beginning. We'll
Right,
be-
we're going into regular.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yep.
so I got to text them right now.
Very good. Do I have a motion and a second? We'll take a 3-minute break and come right back to our regular meeting.
Motion to adjourn with 3-minute break.
Thank you. Councilmember Zaluski motions, Councilmember Ash McPherson seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We'll be back in 3 minutes, folks. Thank you. have a kitten, Councilmember Zaluski.
That is a mischievous cat, yes.
Oh my gosh, awesome. What's his or her name?
That's Owen.
Hello, Owen, your new baby. Congrats. Hi, Owen. How old?
He's 4. He's not a baby anymore.
I didn't know you had another cat.
Yeah, we had the 2, the one that passed away recently, and then Owen, yeah.
I thought he was new.
Yeah, no, he's newer.
He's a cutie. He's a cutie.
Here, come here. He could be famous.
There he is. Thousands of people. Hi.
Say hi.
Hello, Owen.
Hi.
He's adorable. Seriously, he's beautiful.
All right. He came in to say hi. Now he's heading out.
Oh, yeah. Their attention to us is at their convenience. Okay, hopefully other members join us. There's Councilmember Cummings. My son is very wired tonight. I'm not sure if they gave him coffee at school today.
I should have had coffee before the meeting.
Who knew? Okay, hopefully, let's see, Councilmember Gully, if you could join us, we can get rolling. And I know Mara's with us, right, Mara? You're still awake?
I'm still here.
Thank you for not abandoning us.
I'm tempted to say my computer broke again, but check it out.
Mara, is anybody in the waiting room to talk?
No. Was it Stephen Figueroa you were waiting for? Yeah, he
Yeah.
hasn't logged back on yet.
And I've tried to call him and his phone is, goes right to voicemail. So I don't know if his phone died or.
Well, if he joins us, we could, I will break, so just.
Yeah, he was in the waiting for about 2 hours. So I mean, he did wait a really long time.
Yeah.
What's interesting is he actually at one point, used the Zoom feature to raise his hand. He put his hand up, but we were in the middle of discussions and we can't interrupt our process, I guess.
He sent me some notes or sent me a thing on what he wanted.
Okay, we are not in the meeting yet, so Yep, and what you can do, Councilmember Ash McPherson, if he doesn't join us, hopefully he will. I'll break for him, Mara, as he does come on. And if not, Councilmember Ash McPherson, if there's a particular piece of legislation or if it's generic, we'll, give it a few minutes. Okay.
It's generic.
Okay, very good. All right, I am going to call. I'm waiting for Councilmember Gully, but we do have a quorum. I am going to now gavel us into the regular meeting. It is 9:29 and I will pass it over to Councilmember Ash McPherson to lead us in the pledge. Hold on, let me get the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilmember Ash McPherson. Mara, if we could do the roll.
Councilmember Gully?
I'm here.
He's here. Okay. Councilmember Ash McPherson?
Here.
Councilmember Steele?
Present.
Councilmember Cummings?
Present.
Councilmember Zaluski,
Unbelievably still here.
Councilmember McDermott,
Here.
Council President Mantello.
I am here.
7 present, none absent.
Beautiful. The presentation of the agenda, we have a number of items that were passed at the finance, and we also have an item that was passed at a previous finance meeting. So I will first ask for an approval of minutes from our last meeting. Do I have a motion?
To approve the minutes?
Thank you, Councilmember Zaluski. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, discussion on the approval of minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Mara?
I'm sorry, approval of the minutes, 7 ayes, 0 noes.
No problem. As I mentioned earlier, presentation of the agenda, and then we'll go right into the public forum. Has Stephen joined us? Mara?
He has not joined us.
Okay, Councilmember Ash McPherson, want to relay some thoughts?
He was asking, he wanted the status on the cameras, which we can relay that. He wanted to know, if excuse me, if it's okay for Team Hero to apply for the NIP grant to do some improvements for the old 6th Ave Park. Then he wants to know, oh, that was it. And then he said there was somebody else that was on that wanted to speak in the public forum, but didn't know her questions. But obviously there's nobody there, right, Mara?
There's nobody else who signed up. There's one person in attendance, but they did not indicate that they wanted to speak at the forum.
Okay. So other than that, the only thing is I don't have an answer is the NIP. I know we don't have the NIP any longer to relay any of that information to him.
No, we actually have about 2,500 in leftover money from round 1 and round 2.
Right.
And I would love for us to convene at a future meeting to talk about how potentially we could use that for maybe some old 6th, and Councilmember Cummings had an idea with Councilmember Steele. So let's regroup and talk about that at a future finance. How about the next one in October? Okay.
Okay.
Can I just interject? I mean, I think Andy can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that money needs to be spent by the end of the year. So just to caution you,
Yeah.
there's not much time. If that, you know, if you wanted to use that money, it would have to be pretty quick.
Yep. Yep.
Definitely. You're not taking it, Andy.
No, she's correct.
I know.
No correction needed.
Okay. All right. Nothing else, correct, Kim?
No, that's all I've got right there. He wanted to know about the status on the cameras, the NIP, and that's it.
Okay, very good. If he joins, we will welcome him with open arms. Local laws, none. Ordinance 71.
Ordinance amending the 2020 general fund budget to appropriate additional funding from the New York State Governor's Traffic Safety Committee for pedestrian bicyclist education and enforcement. Council President Mantello at the request of the administration.
Do I have a motion?
Motion?
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Ash McPherson. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Ordinance 71 passes, 7 ayes, 0 noes.
Ordinance 72.
Ordinance amending the 2020 general fund budget to appropriate additional funding from the New York State Governor's Traffic Safety Committee for the Child Passenger Safety Program. Council President Mantello at the request of the administration.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Councilmember Zaluski. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second,
Gully.
Councilmember Gully. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Ordinance 72 passes, 7 ayes, 0 noes.
Ordinance 73.
Ordinance amending the 2020 general fund budget to appropriate additional funding from the New York State Governor's Traffic Safety Committee for police traffic services. Council President Mantello at the request of the administration.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Ash McPherson. Discussion? All all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Ordinance 73 passes, 7 ayes, 0 noes.
Ordinance 74.
Ordinance transferring funds within the 2020 general fund budget. Council President Mantello at the request of the administration.
Do I have a motion?
Ken did. Ken motioned.
I'll let him say it.
Oh, I did. I said a motion.
Oh, I didn't hear you. Council Member Zaluski motions. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Council Member Ash McPherson, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Ordinance 74 passes, 7 ayes, 0 noes.
Ordinance 75.
Ordinance transferring funds within the 2020 general fund budget. Council President Mantello at the request of the administration.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Gully. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Ordinance 75 passes, 7 ayes, 0 noes.
Ordinance 76.
Ordinance authorizing settlement of claim to wit, City of Troy against Spectrum Northeast LLC, doing business locally as Charter Communications. Council President Mantello at the request of the administration.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Ash McPherson. Discussion. I would just once again recommend Councilmember Zaluski, Chair of the IT Committee, Science and Technology, to hold a meeting in the very near future. And once again, Rick, really want to make sure that in that 90-day period that we can get some public input, a public hearing, but definitely we want some a little more notice would be great. Okay.
Council President,
Yes, Council.
would next week be good for everyone? The following week, we start the budget process. I don't know if we want to butt up against that, but I'm happy to call one, for any time people are mostly available.
Yeah, it looks like Monday is my only bad night with our every other week meeting, Councilmember Ash McPherson. So yeah, I mean, that'd be great, because once we get into October with the budget hearings and budget meetings, it's gonna get tight.
Okay, I'll look toward next week, and Mara, you'll expect to hear from me tomorrow on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
I probably won't be available because I didn't think we had meetings, but I'll find somebody to cover for me.
Sounds good. Further discussion? I just quickly want to thank Rick and all involved in getting this settlement moving forward. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Ordinance 76 passes, 7 ayes, 0 noes.
Resolution 96.
Resolution 95, resolution reporting the standard workday for certain elected and appointed employees. Council President Mantello.
I am still, thank you, bear with me. There we go. Yes, resolution 95. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Do I have a second? Second, Councilmember Ash McPherson. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Resolution 95 passes, 7 ayes, 0 noes.
Resolution 96.
Resolution to commemorate the life of Ashawn Davis by designating a portion of Old 6th Avenue, Ashawn's Place. Council President Mantello, Council Member Zaluski.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion, Councilmember Ash McPherson. Do I have a second? Second, Councilmember Zaluski. Discussion?
Council President,
Yes, Councilmember Gully.
should we change the title where it says Ashawn Davis by designating a portion of Old 6th Avenue? Or should we change it to maybe a designation of a future location?
No, I mean, the family wants Old Sixth Avenue, and the body states, where, after the meeting, et cetera, how we amended it, where basically it'll be placed at or near the beginning of Old Sixth Avenue or other appropriate location. So, no, I would say keep as is, please. Okay. We have a motion, we have a second. Further discussion? I just want to once again thank everyone for working together on this. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Resolution 96 passes 7 ayes, 0 noes.
Resolution 97.
Resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Eclipse Network Solutions for the purchase, installation, and maintenance of city surveillance cameras. Council President Mantello at the request of the administration.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Do I have a second? Second, Councilmember Ash McPherson. Discussion.
Council President,
Yes, Councilmember McDermott.
I would just like to say that the district attorney's office is going to be very happy getting these surveillance cameras up and running. They've been asking me, they've been actually begging me for months to look into this and get this moving and get them up to help solve the crimes in Troy.
Thank you, Councilmember McDermott. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Resolution 97 passes 7 ayes, 0 noes.
Resolution 98.
Resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a master services and purchasing agreement with Axon Enterprises, Inc. for the purpose of supplying and maintaining body-worn cameras and tasers for Troy police officers. Council President Mantello at the request of the administration.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Do I have a
Second.
second? Councilmember Ash McPherson. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Resolution 98 passes 7 ayes, 0 noes.
Okay, we are done. Has Steve joined us before we break?
No, he has not.
Okay, I will take a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Council President,
Yes, Councilmember Cummings.
I'm sorry, it seems like my mic wasn't working. I don't want to delay the process. I'll just note that I had some discussion and thank the mayor and the corporation council for their work incorporating some of my notes into the contract negotiations, which is why I've changed my mind and I'm not moving to table that despite my previous, just in case anyone's wondering.
I did pause for you. I don't know if you knew, and I got 5 texts saying.
So, because the mic wasn't working, technology. But anyway, thank you for your efforts on the contract, and as well, thank you, Captain Parker, for your work on the contract and on getting us an answer on the ability to delay as necessary if the negotiations take a little longer. Start date of the contract. So that's all very helpful. Thank you so much. And other than that, I'll vote aye on the resolution on the motion on the table.
Okay, we had unanimous for resolution 98, and I believe.
We had a motion to adjourn too.
Thank you.
The one I was voting
I got
aye.
a second.
Thank you. We have a motion from Councilmember Zaluski, a second Councilmember Ash McPherson. I do know that Councilmember Gully does not want to adjourn. But saying that, further discussion. All right, thank you everyone for joining us. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Mayor's opposing.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
All right. Good night, everybody.